Hello. Not sure on the sound, so if you want to let me know is it coming through clear, that would be muchly appreciated. Thank you. Got that. Share screen. Share screen. Share. Hey, Road. Hey, Peaceful. All good, loud enough, yeah? Second attempt. Let's see how we go with this one today. See if this one can get taken down by somebody. But anyway, enjoy. Can't see chat, can only during chores. Okay, Road. No dramas, mate. No dramas. As long as you can hear it, that's all good.
Economic crisis and constitutional crisis coming to an end. We're going to be going through some shit. Look at history and acknowledge that things like this can happen, things like this have happened, things like this are happening.
If it is low, please tell me.
The Great State is a part of this Orwellian nightmare that's being set up.
Their vision for what's next is a global Fed, even more power. The potential complete collapse of America, the global economy.
One world government, new world order.
It's real. A lot of people are realizing it, and more people are going to have it. You are a slave. The system is failing us. And the bottom line is that something has to be done. This is an empire in decline. If we
Okay, I've turned it up.
To put the federal government in check, we're going to be doing things the hard way with a violent collapse.
Video's on full, and I've just turned my volume up a bit.
We're already halfway there. This is half we're already on.
The sound is bad. Hang on a minute.
Sounds like the slow yielding.
Hang on a minute. Okay, somebody said to me that the sound on the actual video is not the best in itself, okay? It's not the best in itself. Let me click on that to see if that makes any difference. Where is it? Somebody said to me in StreamYard that I can share audio. I don't think I saw that coming in. Where is that? Settings. Audio. Try restarting your browser. No test. It's not there. Why am I not seeing this? No, that's not fruit either. That's not fruit either. I'm looking at audio here, but it's coming off the same mic. It's not asking me to share audio. Hey, Gray. Listen, folks, I'm just going to go with it because the audio does get better further down the video. I can't find where it's asking me to share audio. I just went back into settings and there's nothing there about sharing audio because I would have looked at that. I mean, I played one yesterday and it was coming through fine. Nobody complained about it. So I'm assuming it's going to go with the fact that it's the video itself because it even sounds a bit muffled on this end. So it was put up a couple of years ago. We'll go with and yeah.
Of our quiet American towns to a choking array of federal surveillance grids, illegal police checkpoints, and literal foreign occupation.
That is exactly the kind of abuse of power that led to the first American Revolution.
What is it that keeps us from happening in the United States? Is this the kind of world I want to live in?
The volume is on loud here, so, and this is not the actual movie, this is them talking about stuff and the making of the movie and whatever, but I think if I played the real movie here, they'd bring it down. And I did actually look for, I did actually,
Gray state is a symptom. The disease.
Sorry, I did actually look for a better copy than this, believe it or not. This was a couple of days ago, and I even went on to Google. I thought if I get off YouTube and find it on Google somewhere, it's usually a way better copy, but I couldn't find it. The only thing that I could find is the movie itself, and I know that if I play that here, it'll get shut down in the first 2 minutes. So this is actually on YouTube, not once, but 10 times. So if they shut me down, then we know what the play is.
Stated. The morality that we expect ourselves to adhere to, the standards of behavior and conduct. Like when you were taught in kindergarten, don't hit and don't steal, it wasn't unless you're a cop or an IRS agent. You know, when you learned thou shalt not kill, it wasn't unless your dear leader gives you a gun and a badge and a one-way ticket to the other side of the world. Those were moral absolutes, but what we are doing now is institutionalizing them in government and creating this moral exception for people that have the socially granted monopoly on the initiation of force over a geographical area by calling it government and pretending that it's good for us. The only thing that makes the government different from any other organization is the government has the ability to compel people to do things via force. You got to look at that whole idea that it's okay for us to do this, but not for you to do this. They want you to feel defeated. They want you to feel powerless. And that is how they basically get away with rape, theft, and murder. It's like massive Stockholm syndrome. We see it every day. We see it in the news. We see it on headlines, but people still don't acknowledge it. We are already living in a world where government has become a detriment to human liberty by any measure. It's such an obvious level.
You're already going into a scientifically designed Orwellian control system that is meant to use humans up like natural resources.
He's stripping of your rights, your liberties, your freedom, private property, even your free will. That is a great state. And yes, it is real. And yes, it is here.
The free enterprise system is based off 5 features: economic freedom, incentives, competition, voluntary exchange, and private property.
Basically, we believe as free market economists that people have a right to private property, that prices are driven from the market, people that are buying and selling goods and services.
Whereas a socialist system doesn't have.
What I'll bring your attention to as well is underneath the actual, when they show the people's names, right, down the bottom here, okay, let me see when the cursor comes up. Hang on, because there's somewhat of a delay. Wait a minute. Down there, okay, you will see underneath the people's names that come up, neutralized.
Have those features. Then you talk more about public property and what can the state control versus what can the individual control.
If I buy something from you, it's because I value your product more than my money, and you are going to value that money more than that product. And we both benefit. Anytime you introduce force into that equation in any form, you subtract from humanity's potential to reach that ideal of prosperity and progress.
You can't force someone by law to buy something. Otherwise, voluntary exchange doesn't exist. You can see that with Obamacare, different mandates for consumers to purchase various goods and services. So that is a progression towards socialism. You're mandated to purchase certain items from the state.
Individual people can do much better in bringing up an entire economic society by themselves and not being ordered to do certain things. Command economies, that sort of thing. That's why all command economies essentially fail.
That's what they did in Europe. You couldn't keep the benefits of your own labor, your own hard work and sweat. It would be confiscated by some corporate entity that had control of the monetary system. We had a nation of producers. We had a nation of people who were free to innovate and create and then be allowed to reap the benefits of that creativity. You know, that to be television set, the state's not going to come in and say, we're confiscating that from you for the public good. You were then allowed to market it. It generated wealth, savings of money. You had more and more local hardware stores competing against each other. When you had greater competition, you have reduction in prices. Obviously, the people who can provide the highest quality product, the lowest price, are going to win out. Those who cannot will fail. That's what a free market is. It's the freedom to succeed and fail.
It's a simple fact of the superiority of using persuasion to get people to do what you want to do, as opposed to saying, well, I'm scared and I don't trust you, and I'm going to just have someone with government put a gun to your head and do what I want you to do.
When people give money to Bill Gates or Sam Altman, he's not taking it for granted. They're getting something in return. They're getting a service. They're getting a product. There is an organization out there that does take the money from them, and that's the government.
If you live in the United States and you work in the United States, you fall under our jurisdiction.
Does that mean that everyone in North America is a slave to your company?
I don't work for a company.
You work for the IRS. Is everyone is a slave to the IRS?
I believe that I do have jurisdiction. I believe it is valid. I believe I do have those rights. Yes. Okay, but you can't, by your own admission, answer a question regarding evidence that actually proves that there's jurisdiction. You're right. Because you have faith to answer those questions. So you have faith that you have jurisdiction. You don't have any actual evidence, and you're not qualified to determine if there is evidence to back that person up. Correct. Blind faith. That's really impressive when you're talking about other people's property and other people's lives. To have blind faith in a violent, aggressive system.
You don't have a choice about whether or not you can do business with the government. If you don't want to use our services, that's fine. You're still going to pay for those services. If you don't have kids, you're still going to pay for public school. If you're not sick, you're still going to pay for health care. If you don't pay, you're going to send people with guns to take their money and take your house and take you.
The feudal era, you had a feudal king or lord who would claim half of your crops in exchange for protection. And because the peasants didn't know any better, they could get away with that scam.
Oh, give me $20. Well, I'll shoot you or throw you in prison, which is what taxes are. No one pays taxes because they want to. Taxes are collected at the barrel of a gun. All laws are enforced at the barrel of a gun.
Now, the facade of statism has to include them throwing us a lot of bones. You know, a farmer will provide health care for his livestock in the same way that a government wants to keep the tax cows healthy and productive.
They bribe us with our own money, the taxes, and then they take that money and they push it back out. What they hope we don't notice is they take that money from us in the first place. Without the income tax, America historically became the wealthiest country on earth because it goes back to the benefit of a savings-based economy. We were able to accumulate savings and not forced to turn it over to a governing authority to redistribute as it sees fit.
You have a business, you're supposed to file with your business expenses, your business accounts, you're a nonprofit, everything else. But you as an individual, there's no law stating that you have to file taxes on your income.
Understand that your income tax is a farce. The 16th Amendment of the United States was never properly ratified by Congress.
People to today believe that taxation is absolutely necessary, like Winston Churchill said, it's the penalty for living in a civil society. This is not true. We live without an income tax. New Hampshire today still exists without an income tax, and they're thriving. They're doing fine.
You think it's moral to force people to follow the rules, and you think that's moral. You think it's moral to force people to do what you want and to pay you. And we don't believe it's moral to force people on the threat. I disagree with the word force. Yeah, I disagree with the word force, but I think it's moral that you should have to pay your taxes. Absolutely. So it's moral to force people to pay for services they may or may not want. Yes, it is moral to pay for things that you may or may not want. So by doing things voluntarily and not using aggressive force and asking questions, that to you is immoral. But the opposite of being involuntary, using aggressive force and not questioning, that's moral to you.
One reason why the income tax is so detrimental is based on the assumption that the government owns everything and they allow us to keep a certain percentage under their conditions. Which proves the point that even a 1% income tax is morally wrong because it sows the seeds of destruction.
The gray state is a symptom of the step backwards of statism that we're experiencing right now. 2 steps forward, 1 step backwards is the course of human progress. And I can look back and say, well, we started the major step backward in 1913. That was the Federal Reserve.
The Federal Reserve legislation was drafted on an island, really called Jekyll Island. All these bankers that had the JP Morgan and the other large banks at the time got together on this island, secretly drafted the legislation and all that stuff. I think that name is perfect. The creature from Jekyll Island. It's this creature. The Congress was on leave for Christmas, had a silent vote, less than 10 votes, and actually got through.
And all of a sudden, the Fed Board of Governors became the all-powerful entity. So what you did was you gave someone a monopoly, and then they brought that monopoly into D.C. No different than the IMF today, no different than all the corporations and all the guilds, all the unions that are coming to D.C. to seek their monopoly favors.
So basically what it is that the Federal Reserve is 80% owned privately. We got to print our currency, depicts our interest rates, tells us how much commodity products are.
There's nothing federal about the Federal Reserve. It's a private establishment owned and run by offshore banks.
The Federal Reserve is a criminal organization. Did you people know that America doesn't even own its own money supply?
Within our Constitution, to be able to print our own money. Congress should have control over it. The Federal Reserve took that away. This private central authority is going to loan money to your government at interest, so they make money off that debt. And the federal government pays them back plus interest via taxation. And basically, it prints false money, money out of thin air. I look at it as the age-old struggle, the philosopher's stone, where we used to try and find a way back in the old days to create gold, which was money and always has been money, out of lead, and they never could figure out a way to do it. So it's sort of like the rapture occurred when they realized we can substitute gold with paper money, which we can create infinitely at a very low cost.
When they want to spend more than they make off the revenue from the people, that's where they borrow money from the Federal Reserve. Basically, open-ended credit card.
So this debt is only valid so far as our public is able to cover that debt based upon our level of income taxes.
Federal income taxes is one thing, and that's it. When you pay taxes on your income, that goes directly to the Federal Reserve to pay interest on the debt that they create. Anybody not understand that?
Anything they cannot pay for via taxation, they turn on the printing presses. At this point, it's analogous to a Mickey Mantle rookie baseball card. You give some governing authority the right to create photocopies of this, pass them off at the same thing. What's going to happen to the existing value of all other Mickey Mantle signed rookie cards in good condition? Well, they used to be rare, so they had value. Now they eliminated demand. They took us off the gold standard. They took us off the oil standard. Oil is now traded in euros and other currencies, so there's not as much incentive to invest in the United States. And now they're increasing the supply. So you have declining demand, and you have greater supply.
Many a country has tried this in the past. It ends up badly.
You can't just print money and say it's worth something. It's only going to work for so long.
What gives our paper its value is its world reserve status. Every currency on earth is backed to some degree or some percentage by US dollars. What used to give that value was that it was backed by something else of value. In our case, we had the highest gold reserves of any country on earth. We had an agreement under Bretton Woods with Saudi Arabia and OPEC, the oil and petroleum exporting nations of the world, that their oil would only be traded exclusively in U.S. dollars. Every other country on earth had to buy U.S. treasuries and convert their currency to U.S. dollars to get oil, which every economy needs to function, of course. That was the key to our prosperity in the early days.
It's an illusion. It's a mass illusion to say that a Northern Ireland pound has intrinsic value. It's only valuable if somebody takes it. And if you go try to spend that down in London, 9 times out of 10, people say, I don't want that. That's not real money. That's not a British pound. It's a symbolic representation of an exchange medium.
And that's the beauty of gold, silver, and other commodities. They don't lose their value. It just is what it is. It discourages moral hazard and unnecessary risk. If you couldn't afford it, you didn't buy it. This was not poverty. This was responsibility. So they're funneling all this money that otherwise didn't exist. They're creating it literally out of thin air, loaning it to the banks, and they loan it at interest.
You go to a bank, you get a loan, they basically transfer that money out of thin air into your account, and it's a debt. But it came out of nowhere, so technically that's fraud.
Since the 1970s, we did not have the ability to cover our debts via taxation. It's not popular to raise taxes. You're not going to vote for the politician who does that because that gets old. But we hate it when they stop spending. We like the free goodies. So that's why it is we're in such a deficit crisis and they spend so much money. It's popular to spend, it's unpopular to tax. So what do? We have the Federal Reserve paper it over.
The problem is Congress, the federal bureaucracy, and the military bureaucracy. And remember what runs those things. Tax. When you fly into Ronald Reagan National Airport, as you're getting ready to land, if you look towards the Washington Monument, you will see this enormous mountain of cash. The problem with that mountain of cash is it's a magnet for all the wrong people. Everybody in the Beltway exists to get their hands on some of that cash. It essentially creates a situation in which everyone is for sale.
We had to go back to the Mary Angelo Rothschild quote, who was founder of the Bank of England, granted control over nation's currency, and turn out who makes laws. Now, they do not directly influence public opinion, or laws, or anything like that. They do so, however, indirectly, because they control the money, so they turn out who makes laws, because they can use that money, which they can create in perpetuity out of nothing, and give it to their preferred representatives in government, and help shape the agenda.
In every administration, there has been someone or multiple people associated to the Federal Reserve. Isn't that interesting? Why is that?
People when getting into office can borrow money from the Federal Reserve directly for their political campaigns. They necessarily don't have to pay that money back out of their own savings or their own donations. They just leave that as national debt that the United States owes the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is happy to create that debt because every dollar created, they get more interest paid back to them. Once they've taken this money from the Federal Reserve, it's like selling your soul to the devil. You don't really have a choice in which bills you pass or which ones you vote no or yes to.
Listen, there isn't much altruism when you're flooded with cash.
That is one very insidious way that the Federal Reserve impacts public policy. And they use, again, these various roundtable groups as a conduit to accomplish this indirectly. So it doesn't look like the Federal Reserve doing it. But that's ultimately what happens.
How long have they been trying to do this?
Forever. Bankers are like that. Yeah, if you let them do it. But you need is got to see presidents, you've got to see Congress people to prevent it.
Obama's entire cabinet sent in the Federal Reserve. If you don't believe me, look it up.
It's a win-win situation for government to spend. It's something that government can never be held accountable for. It's a way of free money for them.
The elite use the banking and financial industries as a mode of control because either you're owned by them or you owe money to them. So either way, it's kind of like this leash of control around everybody.
Today, if you create an invention, you're much less likely to run a company that employs people for very long, because you're going to have a very large bank or a very large corporate entity come in and simply buy your product. It essentially allows them to confiscate the creativity of you and I, of regular people. It allows them to not produce, to not achieve, to not create something of a great value that the public will demand and consume. They didn't have to do that themselves. All they have to do is control the monetary supply. They can then buy up the pennies on the dollar, essentially your creation, your innovation, and market it to the masses. And then they can siphon out millions of taxpayer dollars for having produced nothing.
As humans, we're designed to worry about the next tribe coming over and attacking our clan. And men are designed to look out towards the horizon and see threats. But we only see military threats or criminal threats or thugs. We have not been designed to see corporate threats where global corporations get their people into government, and the traders in government create new systems and sign government authority over to that.
The conspiracy is one of human nature, and the money power is using that moneyed influence to appeal to people's own basic instincts and their own self-centeredness. You have to ultimately, in a free market, assume the risks and responsibilities associated with the freedom, again, to succeed and the freedom to fail. We don't have that. What you have today is a corporatocracy. You can essentially fail and you don't have to worry because you're going to get bailed out by the taxpayer. It's not a free market. We don't have a free market. We have intertwined corporate interests, right? We have the hydra of these corporations that are addicted to cheap money, free credit, created by a privately owned corporation that monopolizes the creation of money. So the Federal Reserve is going to create Mickey Mantle baseball cards ad nauseum and infinitum. They're going to just print them out to cover all these bad debts that went wrong when Goldman Sachs, Federal Reserve shareholder, decided to sell a whole bunch of these securitized mortgages and the field Glass-Steagall to foreign investors all over the world. That went bad, and they knew would go bad. The fraud element comes in. They knew they were going to go bad. So the Federal Reserve creates moral hazard against these large banks by saying, don't worry, we'll paper it over.
We're in the midst of a serious financial crisis, and the federal government is responding with decisive action.
Over 700 points. Apple shares are just getting hammered.
We're down by between 3 and 4.5%.
A national rescue plan.
$85 billion deal.
The worst economic crisis facing the United States. There are going to be ominous consequences.
We're in the last days of this country surviving.
Supply urgently needed money so banks and other financial institutions can avoid collapse and resume lending.
We bailed out the guys that created this place. And those are the last people that should be bailed out. These people should be granted a free pass.
Not passing a bill now would cost these Americans much more later.
People accepted it. People were like, yes, good. Well, at least we have jobs. At least the things are okay, because that's where our money goes. And every time they manufacture a depression in the marketplace, they receive a bailout. Smaller competitors do not, so they can buy up the assets. Again, the things of tangible, actual value from the productive people in the economy, and they're confiscating it on pennies and the dollars. Because when you're liquidating in a Chapter 11 bankruptcy situation, you're going to take whatever you can get. And Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, Bank of America since moved in, take control of all those assets. They didn't produce anything. They didn't make anyone's life better, but they're rolling in the dough, aren't they?
The primary problem here is that there's an absolute unification of money, power, and government. And you need to try, for the sake of sanity and liberty, to try and prize those things apart. Because at the moment, they are one.
It's this triangle. Corruption leads to secrecy and incompetence. It just breeds all this, and they just want to keep everything flying.
In the Roman period, they used to talk about bread and circuses as entertainment for quote-unquote. Let's increase prosperity and standard of living. Everybody gets to drive a better car. Everybody gets to live in a nicer home. And what we really want people to do is go to the mall and shop and be entertained. They've been very successful in turning the body of the American population into sedated consumers. Well, you can only sedate the consumer so long. When the consumer runs out of his ability to consume, when he suddenly wakes up and recognizes that what he thought he had, he doesn't. The money he thought he had is gone. The wealth he was promised is vanished. That's when the game is up. Today, inside Washington, the mainstream mentality is that you and I and the rest of us that are talking in these terms are out of touch with reality. They cannot begin to comprehend what you and I are discussing today. And I think that's very important for your viewers to understand.
Our banking system is a safe and a sound one.
Our deficit problems are completely manageable. Everything will be fine. We'll pass some reforms, some new legislation. We'll make it all right.
Part of the scam of government by printing money, by borrowing money. We don't have to tax people directly. We can commit intergenerational child abuse and pass that bill off to the people who are unborn, who, when born into America, have a $45,000 stone around their neck as their share of just the federal debt in its most conservatively estimated form.
People keep throwing around these numbers that were 15 trillion in debt, 16, 17. Those are all old numbers. It came out in Bloomberg Financial and other news outlets that under Obama's administration, in the first 2 years, over 23.7 trillion is missing. And those are old numbers, and that's on top of all the missing trillion from Bush.
You had $1 million and you started counting one at a time. It would take you 11 and a half days to get to 1 million. If you were going to count to a billion, it would take you 31.7 years. In 1 trillion seconds, it's 31,700 years. That's the difference between a million, a billion, and a trillion. So a million seconds ago, 11 and a half days ago, a billion seconds ago, 1980, a trillion seconds ago, 29,688.
The way Bush has done it over the last 8 years is to take out a credit card from the Bank of China in the name of our children, driving up our national debt.
Raising the debt ceiling, which has been done over 100 times, does not increase our debt.
We have now seen our national debt go to the tune of $211 trillion. If you consider all the government guarantees to workers for their retirements, for their pensions, etc. We're at a point now where if you were to tax the American public to the tune of 100% of their income for the next 20 years, you're going to put a dent in the interest.
And we see the economy falling apart. And before people have said, you know, I can't really believe that this is all by design. How do tens of trillions of dollars go missing? And then Ben Bernanke, the Fed chairman, just laughs at congressmen and senators when they ask him, hey, where's the missing trillion?
Some of the heads who were in charge of accounting said we just don't know where it went. When everybody's struggling in this economy, Ben Bernanke's out celebrating at this huge gala event with all these rich, elite, powerful people. Meanwhile, there's children starving.
What'd you do at the 2008 Bilderberg meeting? I'm not doing any press today.
For people in high office and high places, there is no accountability. And they like that. And it's a wonderful situation to be in. Never having to answer for what you've done.
It will destroy the tax, and the wealth will gravitate to people profiting.
So when you print money, you literally expand the gap between rich and poor.
We are in debt, our kids are in debt, our grandchildren are in debt, and it's time to stop.
When the United States defaults on its debt, which it will, to the federal resources. It's not a question if, it's a question when. Each citizen has been placed on collateral, which is a social security number. So that means when the default on the debt, it's going to go to the collateral, which is you and me.
So first of all, when you're born, you're enslaved. Look at your identifications. Your name is all in capitals. Here's your corporation. That's your serial number. That's your ticket number.
Everybody's given one of these when you're born. Okay?
That's your PIN number, meaning that you're going to pay interest to the Federal Reserve System, you know, as you grow up and get older, because the Federal Reserve borrows against us as debtors.
This proven the fact that you're a number.
That's the politicians in the New World Order. Who's the one to blame when you're young for the quarter? That's the politicians in the New World Order.
And if I recall, back in 2009, I think it was, they said that people with incomes are a threat to their agenda. It seems to me that they want to make sure that the people don't have any money to fight back. Even the little crumbs.
We have pulled this economy back from the brink. There is no recovery. Everyone is going to feel this, even if they're not feeling it now.
Well, the thing that my baseball coach as a child taught me the most is that in life you are going to lose. We can't have a society of winners. There's not that many college students in the world, right?
I get up and I work every day with the family and generations after me. I just don't know what their lives are going to be like. You know, that's my biggest fear. Is what are we all going to pay for 50 years?
Our deficits are to such a degree that when you cannot cover it via taxation, no one's willing to loan you money anymore. That's what we've been doing. We've been borrowing our way to financial prosperity from foreign central banks. And they won't lend to us anymore because they know mathematically we cannot pay it back via taxation. Bottom line, that's what this is about. They're just creating money, they're devaluing it, and there's no alternative.
The direction we're going in right now is debt and dependency. You understand the principles of the debt super cycle. And eventually that super cycle comes to an end because you can only print and borrow so much money. You've seen the dot-com bubble, you've seen the housing bubble, and if you understand the Austrian school, we're already building that next bubble.
The U.S. Treasury bond is the largest bubble out there, bigger than the credit card and the education bubble. It's several times bigger, and they're going to discover this unfortunate fact very painfully. And what happens then in times of economic crises is you go back to the world of currency. You buy up U.S. Treasury bills because it's a store of value. What's happening today is you're seeing that panic flight to safety into the U.S. dollar. The dollar is not going up in value. It's still very gradually going down in value.
All it's going to take for us to crumble financially is for the world leaders to drop the dollar.
They can dump that on our market at any time. Create overnight hyperinflation. That means all commerce shuts down.
Well, if you know that in 6 months your dollars are going to lose 20% of value, you're not going to hold on to them and save them, which is what we depend upon. You're sure as hell not going to back your currency by them. You're going to buy shit up while the buying's good. You see it now. You got China out buying up infrastructure all over the United States, Russia doing the same thing.
So they're taking these worthless U.S. dollars, and they're buying up this country.
And then there'll be a flight to safety in commodities, gold, silver, etc., to save what we have left. So essentially, at some point, all of the world's banks are going to dump dollars. And those dollars are going to start chasing goods and services. And as the means of production becomes more and more handicapped by government intervention, more and more regulation, less people are going to invest. The whole thing falls apart.
Now, look at the news. You see this is happening right now. The smartest minds in the world are saying these bonds are cooked. We've had it. The rally is over. The long-awaited bond apocalypse is happening. And I think it is happening in the next month, 2 months, 3 months. It's happening now.
So what is real wealth? Is it in a paper currency again? No, it's just paper. It's kindling. It's something to write on, something to wipe your backside with. What does that paper get you? Goods and services. What does a bank confiscate? Do they come after your paper? No, they come after your house. They come after your cars. They come after the actual goods and services that had the value to begin with.
And that's why everyone who's inside the Beltway is so desperate to convince everyone it won't happen. Because there is no way to avoid it anymore.
The economy is going to be okay. Keep them working because you don't want to create pandemonium. Start getting the people too scared about what's going on and start fearing the government, then they're going to have a revolution. They can't have that. They want to keep it on the tipping point where they have to come.
They're going to use our own money to enslave us and collapse the monetary system at the same time. Because again, every currency on earth is backed by U.S. dollars. If there's nothing to replace it, you only have chaos.
In June of 1929, Mr. Mellon, who was the Secretary of the Treasury, told the American people that they lived in an era of unbroken prosperity, that they had nothing to fear. At the same time, he was liquidating all of his investments in the market. He was putting everything into cash and gold. He wasn't alone. Mr. Geithner recently
dramas,
made
HBO.
that our banks are solvent, that there is no issue. We have nothing to be concerned about. Nothing could be further from the truth.
The whole idea about conditioning the kids is the idea of creating a new generation that thinks differently than the previous generation. Teaching the kids that they should think a certain way, or they should feel a certain way, or they should vote a certain way.
In the late 1800s, you have the emergence of psychology, the study of psychology, how people think and how people can specifically be manipulated. If you're familiar with the psychology of B.F. Skinner, what he would have you believe that human beings are not creatures of introspection. They're not creatures of internal cognition. They have no soul. They have no thought processes. They have no free will. What they are animals trained. So you have Skinner's operant conditioning chamber, or the Skinner box, where he trains mice to perform for him based on a system of punishment and reward. Essentially what it does is it bypasses brain functions and goes straight to an animal training method. You create a problem, offer a solution that drives them toward a pre-designed response. It's called the Hegelian dialectic.
The Hegelian dialectic is a formula and a strategy for creating a problem to then offer a solution that you have to the very problem you created to get the outcome that you desire, that you wouldn't have been able to get if you didn't create the problem in the first place.
The Hegelian social theory was adopted by Lenin, by Marx, and it was applied politically in the form of communism and socialism. The German psychologist Wilhelm Wundt, he was the first one to apply it to education.
For 85% of the American population, what is school supposed to do? Provide some path to employment, good citizenship.
I'm going to go into a lot of great depth and detail in the Council of Foreign Relations, but you're looking at an organization essentially set up by Rockefeller and other central bankers, people who are responsible for the creation of the Federal Reserve to debate education policy in the United States. It used to be that education was run by the states. Today you have funding and financing taking place with the federal government or by a public schooling system who don't do what they want. They get their funding cut.
The Reese Foundation, the Ford Foundation, the Carnegie Foundation, and the Rockefeller Foundation, all these major foundations that can actually give American taxpayer subsidized grants to individuals who do things according to their criteria.
A tax credit is when you get to keep your money because of something. A subsidy is when I, the government, actually collect that money and then I turn around and pick a certain behavior that I want and then I subsidize that.
This was revealed in the book Lines of Credit, Ropes of Bondage, in which H.R. Gaither of the Ford Foundation revealed to Norman Dodd of the Reese Foundation that they were taking their directives from the White House. The American education system is a combination of Hegelian social theory and experimental psychology. They destroy things like competition between students, because if they tell you there's no competition, there's no reason to exceed. There's no reason to excel. There's no incentive for upward mobility. There's animal training for the workforce. So you have to attack the family. So say parents aren't fit to be parents. The state has to come in and control that. And you have to control what the children eat, what they're being fed, and what they're being taught, what they're watching. Because you have to begin to set up the generation gaps.
And that's the whole idea behind working with the kids and dealing with our kids, with the concept of the local parenting. The school is the parents and the parents are not there.
Most people are too busy working the 9 to 5, and now that 9 to 5 is turning into 9 to 9 to be able to just survive, crippling the amount of time we have to transfer knowledge and information to our children and our young. So by making sure both parents are away from the children at work, they can guarantee that the social environment of school, preschool, daycare is going to be able to give the children the knowledge that they want.
What you have is the degradation of the individual, you have the promotion of the state, and you have the elimination of the middle class. Now, under this operant conditioning from Skinner and under a system of reward and punishment, the only thing you learn is how not to get punished and how to achieve your reward. You're not going to come away from this system thinking, I'm going to stand up for something because it's right. You're going to do it because there's either reward or consequence. They're being trained to enter the workforce as a valueless cog in the state.
I'm a product of the public school system, and nobody ever taught me anything. I mean, I think we read the Declaration of Independence in the 5th grade, possibly. But I think the school systems are designed to keep people uninformed and to not understand the scope of their rights and where they come from. I think the powers that be would ultimately love everyone to believe that their rights come from the state.
It takes about 20 years for this sort of system of thought to instill itself in a generation, unchecked by traditional values. What you see is the same system employed by Stalin. And basically this is being done in America right now.
We're developing them to not question authority. We're developing them to be entitled. That the government will take care of them from cradle to grave. These efforts have been pretty successful.
No one questions their shackles if they're going into
We have whole generations of kids that are being raised to not think like free people, to think like slaves, to think like they don't have self-determination.
The state's goal is to get your children to turn against you in the name of the state, and that's where we are shifting now. We are shifting from an individualistic paradigm to groupthink.
They want to be led. They want to be sheep. They want to be part of the masses.
Critical reasoning, critical thought, individualism. I mean, those are huge concepts. I mean, they're universal concepts, but to be able to control the masses, you have to get rid of them. Because if you don't, you can't control those people.
It's the alleviation of personal responsibility because the experts are in control. Let them handle it.
Hello, New York.
I love USA! Political parties shouldn't exist. We ought to be voting for a candidate based upon principles, character, things like that. It keeps us from being able to fight over party lines. You look today, you have party platforms. These are things that we all have to agree on. And if not, you are not a part of this party. You look at Ron Paul right now. He's against taxation. Well, a lot of people in the GOP, we like that. But he's against the wars. Well, you must be one of those Democrats then.
The old saying, divide and conquer. They try to just divide people into two different groups that you can't unify. It's easier to manage a population when you have two primary belief systems. You're either A or you're B.
These people are conditioned to think a certain way and support a certain team, and they pick their winning team, whether it's Democrat or Republican. And then that's their guy. And it doesn't matter what that person votes for. As long as their guy wins, they put their pennant up, whether it's got a donkey or an elephant on it, and they wave it and say, my guy won. Things are going to be different.
It's so much easier to lie to the masses when the masses aren't involved. There's no better way to discourage masses from getting involved than by creating convoluted, controlled dialogue based upon party platforms versus individual principles. They'll say out of one corner of their mouth that they want you to vote, they want you to participate, and then you notice statistically that there's less participation today than there ever has been. That's exactly the way they want it. It's all theater. It's just political theater.
We go from rule based on constitutional law to rule based on a cult of personality. Well, he might be wrong, but he's my president, so I'm going to stand with him. That's a very dangerous mode of thinking. Do you support freedom and the American Constitution, or do you support this person? We've all seen where that led in Cambodia, Russia, and Germany.
Listen, Cheney, everybody's got to obey the laws, including the president and vice president. Vote for Democrats. Obama, yeah.
Woo! I'm sure if you ask the average Obama supporter if they have good intentions or not, they're going to say, of course.
They'll have to hell okay with good intentions.
Your Obama's just as bad as the rest of them. Why do you say that?
What's he done? He's one of the most war-hungry presidents we've ever seen. He has not fulfilled any of his policies that he promised at all.
The economy is still tanked. The taxes are still high.
I'll make our government open and transparent. One of my priorities as president is opening up the White House to the American people.
The White House tour to be canceled until further notice.
I intend to close Guantanamo, and I will follow through on that. We will bring an end to this war. I will be held accountable. These are bills that Congress ran up.
You will not see your taxes increase one single time.
Cut the deficit we inherited by half. If I don't have this done in 3 years, then there's going to be a one-term proposition.
If you had a spouse who broke their promise 95% of the time, you get a divorce. This is all bad. But people still support it.
Obama's name is in the Bible. I prayed and I believe that God is the right president.
The Obama noise
you're going to have 20 to 25% of the American public who will always support Obama no matter what he does because their own ego is on the line and they won't admit it.
Actually, those are not facts. What you just stated, those wasn't facts.
Everybody's happy to re-elect President Obama. Yeah.
What's your favorite thing about President Obama?
I could list a million different reasons. Restore public education, and he wants to restore it back to where it belongs.
Yes, everybody in Cleveland, no minority got Obama phone. Keep Obama in president, you know. Gave us a phone.
Okay, yeah.
His public speaking skills are immaculate. Yeah.
He's so smart and he's funny and captivating.
He understands where we come from as individuals.
Definitely for the people.
Obama is my boy, man. He just know what to do.
Love Obama. Let's go. Time to party. Let's go.
I can give you 100 reasons. Give me three. Three main reasons.
First of all, Obama is ensuring that
And the American people have been complacent over the last several decades. They've enjoyed unparalleled prosperity. And let's face it, the average American on the street, he's not interested in what's happening in Kuwait. He could care less about Libya or something else. And so if you tell him, well, listen, we're bombing for democracy, goodness, freedom, human rights, so he said, okay, it doesn't affect him. He doesn't have to go. Children don't have to go. There doesn't appear to be any risk to him. Now, that's changing.
He's done everything Bush did, but more.
Oh, I don't agree with that.
Well, he had to continue what was started. You can't just say, okay, we're done.
Well, sure, he didn't end the wars, but there are wars now, so we're in support of it. And, oh, well, sure, he hasn't completely pulled out of Iraq, but at least he's reducing the number of troops there. Oh, so it's diet tyranny. It's tyranny light now.
there's a lot of other reasons why I'm going to vote for Obama, and hearing that stuff honestly doesn't change it.
For the greater good, most of the policies he's put in place, I agree.
He's challenging the status quo.
Well, he is the status quo.
Obama's going to take us forward.
The president and the first lady are kind of like the mom and the dad of the country. And when your dad says something, you listen.
I pledge
To be a servant to our president,
and all mankind.
because together we can, together we are, and together
People who have destroyed relationships with their families when they realize that their neocon uncle and their liberal cousin weren't just well-intentioned, that they were creating a justification for coercive government and ideology. They were externalizing their own desires to control others, and that was reflected in those relationships.
It always is. I mean, no evil person or evil group of people are ever acknowledging that what they're doing is evil.
I want nonviolence.
Yes, so do I.
No, you don't. You're an Obama supporter.
You think he wants to go kill people with drone strikes?
Well, then
That's
why-
what he wants to do?
He orders it done, so I would.
All right, you're out of your mind.
People are aware of the truth. People choose not to accept it. There's a difference with that. People who are completely unaware of the truth, those are becoming few. It's self-deception. How can you be honest in a political debate or any other contest if you're deceiving yourself first?
People who will, just do what the party wants and do what they're told and vote the way they're told, and they just keep voting for the machine. After a certain point, there's no more deniability. They can't say, "Oh, I didn't know," or "I didn't understand."
Americans accept propaganda from their government that if it came from the Soviet Union, they would have laughed at. If it comes from the Pentagon, they get down and work it. They go around looking for ways to defend the problem.
You can find people all over that will say that you should end the war, but they have a lot of trouble saying that when they meet a soldier.
It was actually my older brother who was talking about joining. We had a lot of conversations about the bravado of the current U.S. military forces, the attitude if you ever go into the military. It's definitely about psychological conditioning. It's the idea that when life and death is on the line, you cannot afford to believe anything but the fact that you are the biggest, baddest force on the face of the earth. But they say, you know, you walk through the valley, the shadow of death, I can fear no evil because I'm the meanest motherfucker in the valley.
Like a big video game that I can watch on my TV. And it's been cool to see all the U.S. flags all over the foreign country, showing how the occupation means that you support everything the government wants. If you don't support it, you don't support the truth.
Another day, man. Another day.
So we condition them and we convince them that their cause is just and that their enemy is subhuman and not worthy of living. And the American people honestly play a role in that.
They come back, and the reception they receive is just astounding. The brave soldiers that come from a combat zone defending our freedoms under the laws. Who wouldn't fight for that? Really?
Thank you for serving our country, and God bless you.
USAA auto insurance is often handed down from generation to generation.
I'm given tax breaks for being a veteran. I'm given discounts on my car insurance. I can go to the commissary, tax-free groceries. I get all the benefits I could ever want. Why would I question that?
We have soldiers who are coming home, they look at all this, and they say, well, it seems like that was wrong, but how could I admit that that was wrong? Because I was a part of it.
You'll never know what we go through for your freedoms. But at no point does anyone question how are they defending our freedoms by invading a foreign country.
Well, you didn't serve, you don't know. Well, then what happens when a guy like Jesse Ventura, who now is served, but served in the SEALs, he comes out and speaks and says the same thing. Oh, he served, but there is no but. He served. He knows. He's been there.
I was over in the Persian Gulf getting ready to liberate Kuwait, which is a kingdom, a dictatorship. And here I am liberating the oil assets from Iraq. I thought I was doing too. And it's really hard to look back on that and say, you know, that military conflict that I was in, that my friends died in, that I got shot at in, that I have nightmares about, I guess that really should have never happened.
And unfortunately, the media has worked tirelessly to ensure that this truth doesn't reach the American people. In the past, we had the media to watch the government and keep them in line and ask the tough questions.
You all remember those clips in the old days in black and white, and you see the news guys with the fedoras. Yeah, they always go up and they'd be in people's faces with big flash bulbs. You know, Senator, this happened. You always hear, you know, politicians being held accountable. They're always being asked questions. You don't see it.
Leaders have found a way to pull the masses into their own ideal sets. And whether that's through bread and circus, such as the Roman Empire, or today through the mainstream media, they get to decide that, yes, you're going to be obsessed with American Idol for over a decade, and when that starts to wane, you know, we'll come up with Dancing with the Stars, and let's really be concerned about who wins the Super Bowl.
Three keys to power are banking, the media, and politics. If you own the banks, you could buy the media, you can buy the politicians. If you own the media, you can control what people see, what people think, you can largely shape the culture, you can create and shape people's fears, people's desires, the perceptions that they have of events.
In high definition.
Here's Morgan, live. In 1975, there was a Senate investigation committee called the Church Committee, which actually uncovered that the CIA was paying under the table mainstream media outlets $250 million a year to act as gatekeepers and propagandists
In today's terms, that's $1 billion a year. Of course, they say they don't do that anymore, but it's foolish to think that they don't. Why do you think the top story is the top story on all major networks?
Carl Cameron, you know, he'll tell you straight up, I can't answer anything unless it comes from my editor.
Can't unless I've got it approved for media relations. I can only talk in front of my own camera.
Araldo, when you talk about Building 7, talk about Building 7, help educate the public. If you get video of Sarah Palin or get a soundbite from her, bring that back to us. You can hold the Ron Paul stuff.
You single out something that the media likes to talk about, such as the Trayvon Martin issue, but we don't talk about the much more serious events that are already well underway.
When was the last time you saw images of caskets coming out of airplanes? You never do. So that's never in the mind frame.
It's this happened now, Paris Hilton fucked somebody else. So it's been 2 weeks on that.
Can't say that this isn't newsworthy. Obviously, there is a blackout in effect.
The mainstream media, though, wants to stay in business. And if they suddenly discover that the people listening to them don't want that message, they're not interested in listening to it, they'll change their tune.
A lot of them are solid investigative journalism. Watergate, people were held accountable. People were fired. People were demoted. People were dealt with. There were prison sentences handed out. At least there was the illusion of some kind of accountability back then.
The Obama administration was caught red-handed supplying weapons to the Mexican cartel. Why did the CIA want the certain cartel wiped out, protecting their own broad interests? What happened?
The American citizenry now, like you said, Fast and Furious, they've done a great job. We just don't give a shit.
First of all, I think that they shouldn't give us too much information because anything you and I can watch on television or enemies can watch, really, it's better to not say too much.
Feel that.
It's amazing. The mainstream media can actually do its job. It doesn't. The American public is now in a state of apathy, almost a state of numbness. And that's what I see is like this is an entire country of people who are turning against the truth.
The desk right next to the textbook. Run next to the textbook, let's look. Look at this, and to the next book. I got this to grow.
But what are we developing the kids to do? We're developing them to not question authority. We're developing them to be entitled. That the government will take care of them from cradle to grave. You don't have parental rights anymore. Not just it takes a village to raise a child, but the village is now raising the child. When we condition the kids, what do we condition the kids to do? Don't always share, always working teams.
See that table over there? We have 6 people sitting around. We always put 4 toys there. Not 6, but 4 toys. Because these kids have to learn how to share.
And that's a good lesson on some level. But what we don't teach the kids is that it's okay to keep the food soup wafer. It's okay to work hard and earn and benefit from that. The thing about wealth is not a zero-sum game. There's wealth out there for everybody. All you have to do is be willing to work hard and earn it. The prevailing attitude in America today is almost that you should be ashamed to be successful. You should be ashamed to be rich. And that if you are rich, the assumption is that you got rich by taking from somebody else.
You will not find your justice in capitalism. You will not find your justice in the colonial government of the United States. You will find justice when the institutions of capitalism and colonialism are destroyed and they are replaced by sustainable ways of being that nurture and protect all life.
Right, here with this crime movement? Yeah. What are they doing? They're chilling.
People with a lot of capital want to make profit. I don't have to look it up. I know it. Rich, keep getting richer. Poor man, Why do we keep doing Bebop. The dirty floor. I'm talking about underwear. What can I do? Thank you. For there's no more.
My interpretation is a lot of people have hard bumps in life that want things to be free, more entitlements.
What people are calling for in Occupy Wall Street is like, well, goddamn it, government, you need to do something.
This is why we're losing all of our rights to too many people that are being dependent upon the system. We want to get all the free stuff. Where is my free stuff at? Nobody wants to hear this, do that. Getting my school loan paid for, getting my rent paid for, my food paid for. It needs to be what we can do for ourselves. I will put this damn mic down once y'all turn our country into a socialist society and take away my right to speak. Choose to be complacent or ignorant, that's fine. That's your right too.
This is how you discourage a protest.
We have to ask a couple of basic questions. The first basic question, what should the role of government be? Should the role of government be there to run the entitlement system? Should we believe this story that entitlements are rights?
Yes, there's always an appetite for big government. There's always this temptation of getting something for free. And there's always the motivation where we'll help the poor people.
You want to give free food, free medical care, free education, free houses, and everything will be okay.
The lie at the core of collectivism is that it is all for the good of the collective. Once they get you to swallow that lie, any other lie they tell in service of that is not a lie. Orwell nailed it. Freedom is slavery.
A lot of the people out there in activism are embracing big government. They think that big government should be used for our benefit, that they can use it for our benefit. And rather than doing again that you can't. That kind of control of central power. That's too much control for any one group.
They're saying that if you have more personal wealth than we think is necessary, then we're going to take some of that from you and we're going to give it to people that don't have any personal wealth.
I'm a warrior for the middle class. I mean, I do think at a certain point you've made enough money.
But those who grab the moral high ground and say that we're going to take care of the poor, what do? Welfareism and inflationism and socialism, they produce the poor.
It's not in the best interest of people that run welfare programs to get people off welfare. Their funding is based on the number of clients they get. Well, if they get a client off welfare, they get a client a job. When they lose that client, they lose that client's money. Because you've got to remember, it's a skimming rule. For every dollar that goes to a person on welfare, $10 is used to support that system. All these entitlement programs, they'll go on forever if you let them, because they will encourage people to become entitled. Well, I can work for minimum wage, or I can just quit my job and go on welfare if I have kids. Welfare is a better deal because they still get the money and they don't have to work.
War on poverty? Are you kidding me? 47 years ago. And now we have 47 million Americans on food stamps in this country. So for 47 years we fought this war, bankrupted ourselves, and now what?
We have cultivated this large underclass that has made itself dependent upon government, and government has encouraged that.
The ruling elite love to create a nanny state because then you'll go along with it. You're not going to bite this one. And then the people who are getting the entitlement, well, what are they going to do? Well, they're going to vote for the people that continue the entitlement. We're saying to these people, you can't support yourself, so we'll just support you. You got to support us.
We have historically been a bottom-up society. We're not a top-down society. You can't make someone equal economically to someone else by giving them something. Are you going to hear Mr. Obama talking about this? No, Mr. Obama says everyone gets everything for nothing in perpetuity. Don't worry, we'll print money. Don't worry, we'll do whatever is required. You can all be permanently dependent upon us, and that's a good thing.
Honestly, it's almost like slavery. there's no personal freedom without economic freedom. If you don't have the means to earn money to support yourself, then you're going to be dependent on the government for food, for clothing, for shelter, for everything you need to stay alive.
After all, look up the definition of dictionary of slavery. It's ultimately boiled down to one word: dependence. If you are dependent upon anything other than yourself to provide for yourself, you are a slave.
I won't have to worry about putting gas in my car. I won't have to worry about paying my mortgage. You know, if I want him, he's going to help me.
The idea of self-reliance is wrong. The idea of independence and individual freedom and the respect for private property, all of these things is gone. No. We can confiscate wealth from people that create it and give it to those who have none, and that will fix things. We've transferred $16 trillion in wealth since 1965 to the so-called underclass. The only thing the underclass has done is get bigger.
They want that cradle-to-grave care from the government, and they want the government to use force and violence against people who are opposed to it.
Well, I obviously believe that my ideas are persuasive enough and beneficial enough to society that people should subscribe to them. But frankly, some people don't, and yet.
And at the end of the day, you'll use force against those people.
I believe that it's the role of the government to use force.
But you won't do it yourself. You'll hire someone else to do it, basically.
That's what a government is.
The reasons people do violence, if you look at the psychological underpinning, it's fear, insecurity, and the desire to survive. So we turn to violence when we're not secure in those things, when we're not secure in our own sense of self and our own ability to thrive. That's why government propaganda is always fear-based.
It's difficult for me to think that if we lose our economic freedom, we become dependent on the government for our basic needs. The next step is we lose our personal freedoms, because then starvation becomes a weapon.
Now, if the food stops, if the free services stop, and I think that could easily happen, because I think this whole giant federal edifice could go under. Then you're going to have problems in many of these urban areas. In fact, we've already got them in the form of these flash mobs.
We see gang members who are committing welfare fraud, and they are killing middle-class people who work for us and pay taxes. These folks, they're not going to support this welfare state, but the people who do support the welfare state, well, they're going to go into it. So we're already seeing it.
This has already begun. It's just not covered in the media. We don't talk about it.
An example, a beautiful example of minimal power in our government, and then we had maximum productivity and maximum wealth. But today we think too much of the wealth and believe that government provides this, rather than understanding that wealth and prosperity comes from freedom and productivity and not from the government. When we had a freer market and sounder money and limited government, the middle class in this country was the largest middle class in the history of the world, and it was the wealthiest middle class in the world.
Madison said it very well. The purpose of government is to protect the unequal distribution of wealth. Mr. Obama wants to destroy that unequal distribution forcibly.
Personal responsibility, self-sufficiency, independence, all these things. You can't have that without recognized individualism. Individualism is now being demonized. You're selfish if you're an individual. You need to be thinking about the whole, the needs of the whole. Well, of course we do. We all do. And we discussed 250 plus years ago that the best way to go about this is by securing individual rights. But you can use the needs of the whole as justification for all manner of tyranny.
If you're looking for a leader, you're going to get a master, and you'll fucking deserve one.
The most ancient divide remains to this day. The legalists, as they were called, they were chief of the people in the governing class, just as they are. And we would call them totalitarians, who believe that every aspect of our life should be dictated and ruled and pushed around by government.
Instead of a political continuum being a line from left to right, it was really a circle. And all political systems had to be judged by the amount of bodies that they stacked up. At the bottom of the circle, cheek by jowl, was communism, Nazism. Moving up the scale, you had socialism, fascism, all of the various collectivisms that subordinate the individual. And at the top was the constitutional republic of the United States. Free men, free markets, rule of law. ordered liberty.
What the Chinese used to call the Constitution. The libertarian, the live and let live, the free marketeer, the small government man, the whole thing.
This is a country of individuals. What sets us apart from Western Europe around the time of the founding of this nation is that you already had socialism already in Europe. It just had different names. You know, whether you call it socialism, communism, monarchy, the end result is the same. A small oligarchy of people are in control. 90+% of the masses are out of control.
Our country is hijacked by a bunch of cretins and draconian legislatures who have grown complacent and comfortable as they receive from us the best health care in the world for free, six-figure salaries, the best business connections that corruption can buy.
Our government's supposed to be, well, first of all, transparent, but also, speaking in our world, they're just our representatives. They don't respect the Constitution, nor do they respect the will of the people, nor do they respect the principle of the people, the sovereigns, knowing what they're doing. So they presume that they're somehow, the appointed elites. They believe they were born with spurs on their feet, and the rest of us were born with saddles on our backs. This is the attitude they have. It's really kind of modern royalty.
It's perfectly expressed in, we are the board, you will surrender to us. They presume up front that they have the right to direct because of this larger idea that, oh, by the way, only serves their interests. That's the big lie of collectivism, because it isn't even about collective, it's about personal power of the people who direct it for them.
They hate the idea that authorized militants should be allowed to have a say, when government should therefore be in the hands of the great good preserved a new aristocracy black.
We talk about the conditioning of our kids and the conditioning of our military and our police, and we talk about the political conditioning that people are undergoing. What we're really talking about is a social movement. And what we're talking about is changing the way people think in terms of what it means to be free and what it means to be a person. The Declaration of Independence said, we hold these truths to be self-evident. What the Founding Fathers were saying there was, this is obviously the way it is. There's no question that all men are created equal when they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. What they're saying there is that, plain and simple, by the nature of being a human being, you simply are allowed to be free, to have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That might be one of the reasons the Constitution's not taught in the public schools, because if we raise up a new generation of individuals, they might realize that this whole system of government is unconstitutional. We shouldn't have it.
This document is the only thing that's going to save us. If Barack Obama refuses to follow it, as he has demonstrated time and time again, nothing's going to change, folks.
If you get enough generations that come up under this system, and they just keep injecting more and more and more of the tired old world saga of collectivism into the minds of the youth, then this is where you end up.
Capitalism, people prosper. Socialism, people die. Millions. You know, lady, I was born in USSR. I lived there for 29 years. Millions of people dead, and this is one of the mass murderers. Murdering people left and right. Really? You don't think so?
You're an exile.
Really?
Okay, but they threw out of the country because you're robbing the people.
Everybody was equal. That's true. Everybody was equally miserable and poor.
You live under a dictatorship, a communist dictatorship. Of course you're not going to love it. Nobody loves it. They didn't let people leave. Right. Yeah. They killed people. They literally shot and killed people who tried to leave home. They used to give you cards, like stamps, like food stamps. You used to go in the store and you had no choice of what to buy. And they always tell me, you're spoiled. You get all these gifts for Christmas. Right. For Christmas, you got me.
They would grow wheat, they grow corn, and then they would turn it all into the collective, and they expected to get something back. Well, of course, were too high. They didn't get anything back. So you literally had people growing their own food, turning it over to the government, and then starving it.
You have rationing of food in any controlled economy. They reduced the people to utter dependency, and that's how the Soviet Union had their way with people for decades.
And people died. Thousands of people die.
Well, my dad, put his whole life on the line to come here because he saw it as a beacon of freedom. He saw it the complete opposite of what he was living under in Poland. That was his major goal, is to get away where I could have an opportunity to live my life in freedom and not be ruled by, the elite.
I grew disaffected from communism, first because of the revelations of the killing fields in Southeast Asia. I had cheered when Vietnam and Cambodia and Laos fell. Then the revelations started coming out about massacres of innocents. This is evil. This is evil as the Nazis.
It's really hard for people to fathom those numbers when you're talking about Stalin 60 million, now you're talking like 40 million, talking about Hitler 60 million.
The individual matters not a thing. That's why they define peace as the silence, imprisonment, or death of their enemies. To believe anything else is to deny a reading of human history.
After the revolution, all these guys who helped the revolution wanted the conviction to stop. And it's because they had torn down any protections of the individual that were going.
So if you're a hard right winger, if you're a hard left winger, if you participated in the Hegelian dialectic, you've served your purpose. You're what they call useful idiot.
They don't care about you once you have fulfilled your role for them.
The government doesn't frankly care if the terrorists attack white embassies or servicemen. Okay? That's part of the job. That's what they signed up for, is to take risks.
Soldiers are, for all intents and purposes, U.S. government property. And that's where the term GI comes from. GI stands for government issue.
And when Henry Kissinger said military men are like dumb, stupid animals to use as pawns in our foreign policy, it kind of sums it up.
What difference at this point does it make?
I think of the story of the early days of World War I on Christmas Eve, where they took a pause and the Germans and the British started singing Christmas carols. And they finally got together and exchanged gifts and had a Christmas tree. And then a day or two later, the hard might of the government went in and said, you will not have peace. You must go back to shooting and killing each other again.
Dwight Eisenhower, in his farewell address from the presidency, said that we should beware of the military industrial complex. It is fully metastasized today into a cancer on our society that takes the best and brightest and the most nobly intent who would put their lives on the line to defend fellow Americans and put some of these bullshit wars that have nothing to do with that.
And we paid a terrible price. What, 1.4 trillion is a minimum? That doesn't even begin to address the massive consequences of the damage we've done. It doesn't talk about the enormous losses we've inflicted on the people of the region, because remember, no one cares how many people we've killed or maimed or wounded.
We've lost close to 9,000 Americans in this period, and 44,000 severe injuries. We've had hundreds of thousands of veterans today begging and pleading for help.
Some of them Laden killed thousands of people on 9/11, and he has paid for that. He's dead. His organization is scattered to the four winds, but we're still in Afghanistan.
First, it was linked to weapons of mass destruction, and then linked to Al Qaeda, and he helped fund the terrorists of 9/11. So that's justifying killing a million civilians, to where parts of Iraq you can't even live in.
And while this is all going on, we're conditioning that this is right. We're conditioning that this is what they have to do, that their cause is just.
As a result of this work, the world is more stable than it was 5 years ago.
Apparently, it's morally okay to launch a war on the most absurd, transparent pretext, kill maybe 1 million people, displace 4 million people, and this is mainstream. That's a mainstream position.
People forget that we do know we can't possibly conceive that millions have been killed in the war in Iraq, for example, because we're such a compassionate military force. People forgetting that the statistics don't always account for the birth defects and miscarriages. Depleted uranium is essentially an industrial waste byproduct, and what better way to make money of something you don't have to worry about spending money on disposing of safely, right? Than to turn it into a weapon. This is a very dense material, a very dense compound, great for the army. Problem is, it leaves thousands of years worth of radioactivity behind, and if you look at children that are being born in Iraqi Kurdistan in particular, there's lots of depleted uranium, there's even a lot everywhere anyway. You've got massive deformity, gigantism, all of them.
Higher rates of cancer, leukemia, and infant mortality were found here than in Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
These babies are doomed to die.
These are untold thousands, if not millions of lives that are being killed even before they're born. Those are the true costs of modern warfare. Depleted uranium is also a violation of the Geneva Convention and various other treaties that have been agreed upon by the United States and other Western powers with respect to chemical and biological weapons. Hell, we're in Iraq for WMDs, and we're using WMDs against these people. You don't hear about our weapons of mass destruction, do you?
You know who pays for that? You do. Your taxpayer dollars. You're the one who pays for that. So I hope you feel good about that.
Dear any American who thinks this Boston massacre is a big deal, but never protested a war, go fuck yourself. In Iraq, from the end of the First Gulf War to the start of the current occupation in 2003, sanctions on the country led to the deaths, conservatively estimated, of 500,000 Iraqi children. That's like 45 Boston massacres per day in Iraq for a decade. One every half hour. And they're not being blown up in explosions. No, these are the ones dying slowly, painfully, starving to death. Did you cry over that? Did you protest? Did you do anything to voice any opposition to what Madeleine Albright, then Secretary of State, called acceptable collateral damage?
You can't say that you are a Christian, that you believe in the sanctity of all life, and go bombing people in the Stone Age and taking their shit. That's immoral. You can't have it both ways and then say, oh, but I'm going to oppose abortion. You either are or you are not. I can respect someone a whole lot more like a Zygmunt Brzezinski or Henry Kissinger who says it. Outright says, we're going to take it because we fucking can. And if you oppose that, try and stop us. At least we know where they stand. But with the common American, you want to have it both ways.
We are dropping bombs on crowded cities at night where old people and children are sleeping. And we're watching it on CNN. What are we doing with all these wars? How are we safer?
I notice many left. It's not an easy thing to watch, is it? Truth is not always pretty. Doesn't always come with glitter and sparkles.
This is a product of the emotionally stunted state that Americans have been lulled into. To be told when to cry, when to care, when to mourn, when to shut up and go along with the plan and keep paying your taxes. We are creating enemies with this foreign policy faster than we can kill them. And I can tell you that from my personal experience in Fallujah that backs that assertion up. They don't hate us because we're free. They hate us because we're myopic, patriotic idiots who allow ourselves to be so emotionally manipulated that when something like this happens, the result is more brown people on the other side of the planet die.
We made good progress, and we'll continue to work together to achieve freedom and peace.
You won't care because they choose not to. It's that simple. Either you do care or you don't fucking care. They look at those people as inferior people, for God's sake.
It's not them, it's not me, it's them. But them and we belong to the same people. That is the human freaking race.
I've heard more times out of people, well, you know what? It doesn't affect me directly. So I don't fucking care. And they'll go, "Is that wrong?"
If you consider yourself to be a moral person, you have to be opposed to this. If you do not care about morality, well, at least you're being honest. But I think we've got an entire nation of sheep doing everything they can to avoid that level of moral responsibility.
Now, Mr. Montgomery, what is your problem? I'm sorry. He says, look, don't you think it's worth 3 or 4 killed to secure the oil supplies that we need? I said, well, suppose one of those 4 killed this week was your son. He said, it wouldn't be my son. And it wouldn't be his son.
Our enemies are not 7,000 miles from home. They sit in boardrooms. They are the millionaires and billionaires who control this planet. We've had enough of it. The state has us thinking that it is us. Should we invade Iran? Or should we starve them? How dare they say we? It's heaven.
Dying. We don't need to die. Fuck, man, give them a chance. Why would we get to trade a race? Just not giving an opportunity because we've been suppressed through tyranny.
I will not be a part of that anymore. These medals don't mean anything to me, and they can have them back.
And I choose human life over war, militarism, and imperialism.
You are deluded, and your delusion is dangerous, and it is getting people killed. And your attitude, your tribalism, your personal identity, because you choose you want to be an American before you want to be a human being. It's disgusting.
Sorry to all of you. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, you're right. I think you're the one, sir. And it's your children who are going to look up to you and think that you're the greatest people in the whole world. You want a better life for your children, you want perpetual warfare. I really see this as sort of a moral decline of the United States America, the idea that the ends justify the means. We need your oil, so we have every right to take it because we're bigger than stronger.
The problem is a moral problem. The answer can't be sought or gained by looking at the traditional moral authorities, because they ain't there, folks. What does that mean? It's only us.
This is the stuff that keeps me up at night. This is the stuff that keeps me up at night.
So you've got the media propaganda arm, which keeps us loving our own slavery. Then you've got the financial system, which keeps us dependent on them. Then you've got the military state, the police state, to keep physical control over us.
The function of the police used to be simply to protect basic rights, and they've shifted over the decades from that to revenue generation. They're pulling you over and they're giving you tickets for not the breaking of laws, but statute infractions.
Thank you for swearing to the oath of the Constitution, sir, but this is a statute violation, which is an Admiral Maritime Law. Which is, say that again? Admiral Maritime Law, right? Which is like a seabound ordinance. Basically, when you see the gold feathers on the flag, it means you're stepping into a courtroom that's run by Admiral Maritime Law, which is in violation of the common law, which is constitutional law. By entering into that courtroom, you're agreeing to go before a banker instead of a judge, so that way they let fines and judgments against you.
I am the judge of the law. I will instruct the jury on what the law is.
I object. You
That's
are
fine,
not
sir.
a judge. You're an executive administrator. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled there are no judicial courts in America. There have not been since 1789. So judges do not enforce statutes and codes. Executive administrators enforce statutes and codes.
All right, we're done.
Statutes are just basically designed as hidden taxes on the public. It's just a way to generate revenue. So yeah, we've already set that precedent. It's gotten the police able to accept the fact that they are basically revenue generators and not law enforcement officials.
I remember what I said before about government programs, the welfare programs.
are not designed to get people off welfare. They're designed to keep people on welfare and recruit new people on welfare. Well, internment programs are not designed to keep people from being interned.
2.2 million people in prison. They say this is the most free country in the world.
All it comes down to, if we want to intern someone, is just making a rule, a law that they violate, punishable by internment. If the government doesn't have any control over law-abiding people, any force used against those people is not legitimate because they're not doing anything wrong. But if you make enough things illegal and you make a law difficult to comply with, then you get to the point where you can create criminals. And when you create criminals, then you create a class of people that are open to oppression. Martha Stewart, her stock trading was ruled by the court to be a legal act. But they sent her to prison anyway because she lied about it. And she went to prison because she said she didn't commit a crime. But that's federal law. That's what created.
Can you tell me one thing that you're free to do without asking permission or paying to get a license, registration, or permit?
Hang out with my friends and have a great time.
Yeah. Could you tell me what you're free to do in America?
Everything. I can eat how many carbs a day I want.
In New York City, they're trying to make all kinds of laws to ban salt and drinks that are a certain size. So, I mean...
That's good because a lot of people are obese.
We got pages and pages and pages of arbitrary laws. 2/3 of our prison industrial complex is filled with nonviolent, small-time drug possession offenders.
Law enforcement agencies get money to fund drug operations. Well, if they don't have any drug operations, they're not going to get any funding. And the amount of funding they get is contingent on the number of drug busts that they make. So what's the incentive there? Is it to reduce drugs in the community? Absolutely not. The incentive is to increase the amount of drug busts they get and push their stats up and then get more funding. Thousands of police officers out there have been convinced that marijuana is the most insidious, horrible drug on the planet. People are using it. Doctors are prescribing it. And yet our federal government still maintains that it's somehow an insidious, dangerous substance that you can go to prison for 100 years if they're caught with a certain amount. They're arresting someone with an ounce of marijuana in their pocket, sending them to prison for 5 years and saying, there's nothing wrong with this because they told me that this drug is a threat to my way of life. We've created a class of citizens that can be interned in this country. Any one of us could wind up being moved into that little box based on some new law.
There are so many laws that the average American commits 3 felonies a day, and they can arrest you at any time they feel like it. And a cop can pull you over at any point you're on a public street and find something wrong with your vehicle and give you a ticket for it and steal some of your income. And if you look at him crossways, he can put you in jail. And if you don't look at him crossways, he can say that you did and put you in jail. That's the kind of arbitrary authority that exists in the police state in America today.
Who are you and what are you doing? Let me see your ID, please. Liberty doesn't come from our government. Sometimes they think they're passing it out, and sometimes they are always restricting as if it's their liberty rather than our liberty.
They say that about the law and pass all these unconstitutional laws, making us slaves.
The question is, when government becomes people and oppressive, to whom can the people turn for peace, safety, and freedom? Your main responsibility is to protect you from the federal government.
And then we give our police departments military-grade weaponry, assault rifles, we give them armored vehicles, helicopters, infrared.
That's what we woke up to this morning. Men with machine guns coming in short.
We see a giant arms race against the American people, but not just here in the United States. Worldwide, governments are massively increasing their spending for domestic control. They've standardized police state to that they developed in third world countries that they've invaded and taken over.
State police forces that disgust at the thought of cooperating with Homeland Security and the feds, completely turning the whole concept of our government on its head by saying that the federal government is here to protect us, when really the founding fathers designed the government to protect us from growth of government.
I think militarization is a better term than federalization to describe what's happening to the police force. It just so happens that under the current system of government, it's happening at an increasingly federal level, that the federal government takes control of local police forces while at the same time using the federal government's revenue generation system of printing money or through direct taxation to funnel more money to support things that the free market never would, because you need a racket that is government. Ronald Reagan said the closest thing to eternal life is a government agency, and it's true, because once you give them the funding to do things with, at best, a warped system of accountability, they're going to take that power and trust it in them to keep their own paychecks going, not by serving people, but by serving that twisted system of approval for that funding.
Work for Federal Reserve? Yep. What's Federal Reserve Bank around here? It's not?
TSA agents are on the interstate fighting terrorism with visible intermodal prevention and response, or VIPER operation. Vicki, you know, this was a massive operation, really bringing all federal, state, and local agencies together to not only do random searches, but also create an army of agents on wheels.
It's all, in a way, starting to blur together.
You can see examples of the gray state in our modern time just by simply walking down the street and looking at authority figures that you have to deal with. You can see that a lot of authorities are becoming more militarized just by in the way they look, in the way they act, and the way that they treat us.
If you have an honorable discharge from the military, it's pretty easy to get a job in any police force in America. We see people coming home from war, taking those jobs, and bringing that mentality of the military occupation to domestic law enforcement. And so that does have an actual effect on the relationship between individual officers and citizen subjects.
I was out confronting Carl Rose on war crimes with Colleen Rowley and others. The police escort that he had with his entourage was younger guys, cut, very fit. You know, we all like to joke about the donut eating cop who's overweight and couldn't run a mile to save his life. These guys are cut. And the look in his eye when I was disobeying him, he wanted to hurt me. He wanted to hurt me. I even called him out on it. I said, "You want to hurt me right now, don't you? You really do." Well, yes, you were over in Iraq, weren't you? And he says, "We need to leave. We need to leave right now." I'm like, "Well, isn't that a bitch?" Because I bought a copy of Carl Roth's book here, so I'm a customer. I'm not loitering, am I? This guy, he wanted to hurt you. If he had been given the order by his higher-ups to beat the living piss out of me, he would have not hesitated.
So you have a lot of guys coming out of that mentality of the dehumanization of the enemy, that is how we impose martial law in Iraq and Afghanistan, and applying that in the United States.
We see this militarization of the law enforcement, and we combine that with the conditioning. They're not even people, they're bad guys, they're criminals, they're enemies, they're drug users. So these people are inherently evil. We are absolutely good, and we have the best high-tech equipment and weapons, and we are going to squash this enemy.
So it goes back to the ego again and the badass mentality, and then the police want that, because yeah, they don't want people questioning what they're doing. They want people who get off on power.
Shut your mouth, I'm talking. I am Officer Rivieri. Now, the sooner you learn that, the longer you're going to live in this world.
There is a intentional dumbing down of Americans. You all realize that. And that starts in public school. The cops in the military went to the same public school you and I did. And they didn't learn their history, they didn't learn their heritage, they didn't learn the Constitution. But they're not all bad. Most of them, I'm sure, joined the police and military because in their hearts, they saw themselves as a hero. They wanted to be a hero. And they wanted to be a defender and a guardian. And so the best of motives, but if they don't know the Constitution, they don't understand the basic principles about human rights, they can be easily manipulated and twisted into becoming distant forces.
I often talk about how things seem to be going in cycles. Now history repeats itself, and how like we have the Occupy movement, it's the Hooverville of today.
With the Occupy movement, we saw militarized police using weapons used in foreign wars against protesters domestically.
These Occupy Wall Street people are dissenting, and we need to crush them.
Go 16,
Not much changes, does it, people? Year after year. The only things that seems to escalate is the bullshit.
Police, and they assemble and put their shields together, start beating their shields. Boom. Boom. It's psychological, designed to intimidate and create fear.
I was just treating the cops, please don't tear gas us. We're completely peaceful. No one's participating in any aggression, and they just like tear gas all of us. Kids are strollers with their moms, and people were actually trampling each other to try to get out.
I've had conversations with police officers before and asked them about what's going on with Occupy Wall Street. Like, is this right? Well, you know what most of them say? No, that's not right. They can't do that. I'm like, so why are they doing that then? Why are they getting away with it? It doesn't only apply to Occupy, of course. It's a pattern of police brutality that goes completely unaccounted for.
When she had someone call the Stark County sheriff, her troubles got worse.
You're just walking and all of a sudden,
Not a war. It's commandeered my vehicle, searching keep my home.
Both of them, tough out of the car, it's on the ground. Get on the fucking ground and your fucking hands don't fucking move.
At least 8 officers rushed to the car with guns drawn and even rifles out. Then one fatal shot was fired, putting their middle finger at us and screaming obscenities, saying like you punch shot yourself.
I have no criminal background, I have no identity job.
They have to search me. I'm pulling my dick in my hand.
Are you gonna make your hand on my pants or something?
How to work a police station in Anaheim?
They just really said they're gonna have my baby.
They smashed my face into the drywall and asked if I was going to cooperate. If I refuse, that makes me guilty right away.
I complied under duress.
Stop resisting! Stop resisting!
I had no witnesses. If I had resisted, I would have been busted up. Could have been before.
He saw a police officer shoot Patricia Cook to death in this church parking lot.
Stepped out in the street about 5 more times.
I wish I knew what was going on.
The American people refuse to be terrorized, except by our own fucking government. As an American, you are 8 times more likely to be killed by a cop than by a terrorist.
I would rather go to jail than be dead.
Corruption has always been there. You don't question it because the higher up you go within the police realms, it's kind of like the mafia. Oh, they'll take care of you. You never kind of fellow officer.
No charges have been filed. There was no jury. A judge was the sole decider. He says police videos like these should be used to protect police, not go after them.
There isn't going to be any investigation at that point. When we hear about someone challenging a police officer authority to search them, they're often dismissed as a kook.
You know better than that.
I'm sure you do.
I know exactly how it works, and you know I know that. No, you haven't dealt with me. I'm with Cop Watch. I've dealt with you.
Well, the fact is you have the right to challenge that authority to search.
You have that right. But now you have state patrol and police officers saying, you don't have any rights. You can't question my authority.
I told you to stop. Stick in the window, you hear me?
We've had police and law enforcement, we talk to them, confront them with facts about what's going on, and they say, I don't know and I don't care. I think we're at a point with the economy where they don't give a shit. I don't think they're trying to justify it for us. They truly don't give a shit. The idea that I have to do this, it's orders, and if I don't, my pension's gone and my career is over.
Your livelihood, the economy, and I can stand up for that, but then how am I going to provide for my kids?
It's pretty easy to abandon the rule of law when you're following the rule of number one, which is take care of you and yours. I think that's the modus operandi of most police. And then you have the truly sadistic 10% of them who just simply get off on it. Not only do they just not care, but they revel in it. The idea that, it feels good to be dressed up like this, it feels good to have power over other people.
There are, yes, state police officers and individuals within government who get off on exerting authority unjustly and get off on violating your rights. But that's not the driving factor. That's a consequence of the scam of this government and of the state's debt.
So I see that all over the country now. I see the police increasingly becoming militarized, very, very aggressive, and the idea of constitutional rights is laughable.
I never got I'm not shutting up. You cannot shut me up. I know my rights. I don't give a shit.
That's the First Amendment issue. I can take pictures.
You get off my property, your ID.
This is a police thing.
Greg Steffi and his wife Hope are accusing deputies of using excessive and outrageous force, an allegation the sheriff denies.
It's just wrong that they do this to people. She called for help. She asked them for help, not for this.
There are cops out there that are justifying themselves every day.
Well, unfortunately, I mean, we've seen a lot of people just mindlessly following orders already. It's just amazing this divide between cops and citizens and activists. And it's sad. It's sad that the fight has gone between, who we're really trying to fight is the power of these that are creating these policies, and they've made it against cops versus us. And that's really, cops are part of us. They just don't realize that this is happening.
It's not necessarily the police that are our enemies, it's the people behind the scenes that are making them face us.
All these things are being used and they're being justified by this war on terror, this war on drugs. And the question is, why does the federal government feel like the solution to these problems declared for us?
We will again set an example for the world that the law is not subject to the whims of stubborn rulers and that justice is not arbitrary.
Shortly after 9/11, within a week or two, there was a bill brought to the floor that had been floating around the Congress for several years, but it never had enough support and they couldn't get it passed. But after 9/11, they said, now is the time that we'll pass this wonderful bill that's going to protect the people, the Patriot Act. But if they had called that repeal the Fourth Amendment Act, maybe it wouldn't have passed so easily.
There are no shortcuts to protecting America. I will provide our intelligence and law enforcement agencies with tools they need to track and take out the terrorists without undermining our Constitution and our freedom.
The U.S. is funneling money into tracking systems that are threatening to make the very concept of privacy a thing of the past.
In the past 5 years, the Department of Defense has shelled out an estimated $3 billion on biometric programs, technology that uses physiological and behavioral recognition to identify people. However, the top cash cow is expected to remain government spending on security.
It's always the government that says, oh, if you don't have anything to hide, why are you worried about the Patriot Act? Why are you worried about all these spy systems and data mining? But yet it's those same people that hide in private, that meet in secret, under armed guards, that won't disclose what they're doing, but they want to see, hear what we're doing. New televisions have cameras and microphones built in them, facial recognition scanners, audio, voice recognition. So that is an open video camera and an open mic in your living room, in your bedroom, that any sophisticated hacker or the government could and do tap into at any time. In New York City, they're implementing iris scanners. It's actually an app for the iPhone.
Long-range fingerprint and iris scanning are reportedly also being explored for the U.S. toolbox of tracking. However, scientists are reportedly developing new technology aimed at identifying anyone from much greater distances.
We are 5 years away in New York from zero privacy. They're trying to push through being able to take our blood now, too. Treat it like you're in a maximum security prison.
People thought that drones were just in Afghanistan and in Iraq. Now they're in America. Now they're arming them. Now they're putting facial recognition scanners on the drones. The NYPD is mounting body scanners, like in the airport, to the back of patrol cars, and they're going to be scanning people as they drive up and down the street. So the Supreme Court has already ruled that the NYPD wasn't allowed to use infrared technology to do the same thing. So now they're just trying a different flavor of radiation. When I worked in the agency, this was the day before, gigantic amounts of computerization. Everyone had a 201 file. Everything we knew about a target would include any comments that people had made about you, anything we'd overheard about you, 5 or 6 files, each 2 or 3 inches thick. The amount of effort it took to go through something like that in paper format meant a good deal of the 20,000 employees in the CIA spent the time doing just that. In today's digital age, when you can go online and get 90% of a person's history just from open source, your life is not your own as far as the government goes.
You can't have 100% security and also then have 100% privacy. We're going to have to make some choices.
You see the globalists building a giant police state control grid and calling themselves technocrats. A technocrat is a group of dictators who use technology to control people.
They can tap your phone, record conversations, go into your email. And they do on a daily basis. They just don't tell you. They don't have to.
There can be warrantless wiretaps and warrantless searches on your digital information. There's stuff out there that will suck your hard drive 10 seconds or less. It's no big deal.
A system touted as a national security necessity is being used to build a database where the biometric identity of millions of Americans will be gathered and stored.
It is of no dispute that who you're calling, when, how long you're talking, what you're buying, all the stuff that happens on your iPhone or smart device is being used. Now, at the time, there's no legal oversight as to what these fusion centers, as they're called, there's no oversight as to how they're going to use it, but it's there.
So they're using databases, which is the concept of a fusion center, from driver's license, criminal databases, social networking they've added to that now.
The CIA could care less about all the social media because it's not sort of objective reporting on people. But the people who really care about that are commercial entities. And they're leading the way on the science of extracting all this information and coming up with an algorithm explaining this person believes this person believes that.
The algorithms that they're using can track most people's habits and what they're going to do within a 94% accuracy rate. People boast about that.
Of course, now the CIA has noticed that, all right? And all they simply have to do is buy a commercial off-the-shelf product to find the people they really want to find. So if I use my iPhone to purchase a product, you know, it's flagged, it's under suspicion, I'm going on the list. That will be, you know, tucked away for a later time. That means that people can collect it and then look at it when they want to. And they may only want to when all of a sudden you say, hey, I object to this. And they go, oh, well, let's take a look and see what would make you object to that. Let's see why you don't like what we're doing. You haven't committed a crime yet, but the second that spectrum of crime shifts over to include whatever it is you are doing, they do know what you are.
You become a political enemy to somebody, or you have an ideology that people don't like. Look, right now there's a war on raw milk in this country. So if I drink raw milk, then I'm going to become an enemy of some industry, the FDA or the USDA, and now I can be targeted politically. It's happening. People being targeted by the police state because of their political affiliation. People's children being taken away from them because they're critical of the government.
If I go and try to find out something about you, and I have to do extraneous measures to do that, there should be no objection from you, because if you're not doing anything wrong, what have you got to hide?
But it's very hard to explain to people who don't get it, because for them it's normal. They think it's...
Do you know, it's so true though, because they keep changing the law, eventually eventually everybody is going to be guilty of something. You know, that is so fucking true. What that guy just said. I mean, if you make enough things illegal, right? If you make enough things illegal, eventually everybody would have done something illegal.
Just being open, and they live in a world of reality shows. They want their every little thought to be communicated. That's not an Orwellian dystopia, it's a brave new world dystopia. It's a nightmare, but they don't know it, they're happy. So that's the worst of all, really.
Like me? Yeah, everything. Like what? Well, you ever deposit or withdraw more than $1,000 in your bank account? Yeah. Okay, well, you get reported to the freaking Department of Homeland Security every time you do that. For what?
I'm a Verizon customer. I don't mind Verizon turning over records to the government. I don't think you're talking to terrorists. I know you're not. I know I'm not, so we don't have anything to worry about.
Get an iPhone and you're good for life.
For them, it's logical. If they want to see you going to the football game, fine, I don't care. But actually, they are slightly modifying their behaviour and are less free as a result.
The chilling effect is very strong because when you are telling people that they're being spied on, I mean, it's drones, for instance, this new element of drone surveillance. A lot of people say that they're just like, well, I have nothing to hide, so why should I care? That's not the point. The point is that when you have a tape recorder out on a table, you're not going to say the same things that you did before. You're not going to defend as much, and that's the real suppression.
I'm worried that the new generation doesn't understand what privacy is because they've never had it and because everything is about sharing. And I mean, we probably the last generation who knew what it was like to be unmonitored. Therefore, we know what we're losing, but they'll never know.
So the question is, why don't you trust us? And I tell people, because I've been one of the people who are supposed to protect America. I'm just a person. I have likes, dislikes, I have opinions, and all that stuff bleeds through to what I do. And they say, well, you can trust us because we're not going to misuse that. But they prove it over and over and over again. They will misuse it. J. Edgar Hoover had enemies lists, and he was working to make these people's lives miserable, and they were using all these federal powers that they have to destroy people's lives.
By sifting through this so-called metadata, they may identify potential leads with respect to folks who might engage in terrorism.
Well, we all know that their definition of terrorism in every government, every dictatorial regime inevitably starts going to the area of people who criticize what the government's doing.
When you become a political target of the great state, they're going to use anything they can. So if they have a total surveillance state, but if they can just look at the Facebook page without a warrant, now they can use that against you.
And I'm convinced there are certain politicians out there that they could put their political opponents in camps. They would just, they haven't crossed the line to where that would be possible. But what they can do is they can change the way people feel. And I'll offer an example of this. Smoking. We banish smokers to parking garages and predetermined locations 25 feet from the building entrance. Smoking is really not socially acceptable anymore. How were they able to do that? And the answer is that we were able to pass more restrictive anti-smoking laws because they were able to make smoking socially unacceptable. If they had the authority to do it, if they could do it, if it were socially acceptable for them to do it, they would take their political opponents and round them up and put them in internment. People say, well, that's ludicrous. No one would ever actually do that. Well, we did it. During World War II, we did it to the Japanese Americans and some German Americans in the West. In fact, we even called them concentration camps. England did it in Ireland, during what they call the Troubles. So they would intern people at what they call Her Majesty's pleasure, which means they would keep people interned there in prison indefinitely. Now we're saying well, we can do that too. All we have to do is call someone a terrorist and we can lock them up pretty much as long as we want.
What just got passed was the National Defense Authorization Act. What people don't realize is it wasn't reporting in mainstream media. It completely finally put the nail in the coffin on the Constitution.
When the Patriot Act was introduced after 9/11, its most draconian measures were not exercised right away publicly. It was much more private. Well, now with the passing this new Senate bill, they're advertising it, we're saying it's here.
Have you heard of posse comitatus? You know that, right?
Yeah, I mentioned that today, but I'm not familiar with it.
It strictly prohibits, and it's very clear that the military is not to be used against American citizens, not to be active on American soil.
They cannot arrest you. They cannot act as a force within American soil. That's what the police is for. The Defense Authorization Act completely bypasses the posse comitatus act. It's saying that the military can now act like the police force. Now they are one. There's no separation of power.
Being military police, we don't feel like we're being used, 'cause that's kind of our job too.
Yeah, but not on U.S. soil, right?
Actually, we're going to be certified as U.S.
Law enforcement.
Everything they go through is certified. We're going to be doing the same thing. It's almost like we'll be going through the academy like they did.
What they're doing is turning the United States into Iraq, and that's really no exaggeration. The same legal structure that applies in Iraq as the laws of war is what they're claiming to be able to do here at home in the United States. There's no legal barriers anymore as far as they're concerned. And that any American citizen accused of being a terrorist does not deserve a jury trial, but instead will be an enemy combatant under martial law, under military law, under the laws of war. Authorizing military force, that's killing you, military detention, and military trial or rendition to some foreign country.
If they have any reason to want to detain you, they have to. They don't need to acknowledge the Fourth Amendment.
There's no judge, there's no jury, there's no evidence.
As long as we're at war, we can convert this crime, this criminal offense, terrorism, into an act of war at our option, and now we can do whatever we want.
We are authorized to take action against enemy belligerents under international law.
It seems like that could happen to anybody. All it takes is for a couple of people to say, hey, you're a terrorist. You're going to get picked up. You're not going to be able to talk to a lawyer, and you're not going to have any rights in that situation.
And when they say, I want my lawyer, you tell them, shut up.
The Constitution guarantees due process. It does not guarantee judicial process.
If you had a family member of yours arrested for any reason, let's say to say they're guilty of a crime, wouldn't you at least want to know? Wouldn't you want to know that the facts will be disputed in a court of law, that they stand a chance that if they are innocent, that can be found?
They might even send you to Syria and get tortured by Syrian secret police. Find out what you know. Or they'll use one of the forms of torture that they determine are actually not torture. Alternatives. They say, well, this isn't torture, so we can do it. And what they're saying now is this isn't internal, so we can do that too.
I have two words for you. Predator drones. You think I'm joking?
The Nobel Peace Prize winner has just announced and authorized that he has told the CIA that it can assassinate American citizens in violation of federal law and in violation of treaties to which the U.S. is a party.
They don't write these laws not to use them. I mean, where does he get this power?
You had Al-Awlaki and his son murdered. These were American citizens.
Awlaki is a terrorist.
Probably the most significant risk to the U.S. homeland.
We certainly want to neutralize it.
It's a huge change of presidential powers that has occurred.
It's totally right and totally constitutional. It's the one thing
It's right to kill anybody without the due process of law and have a kill list? Are you kidding me?
President Obama has used more targeted killings than the Bush administration ever did. This is a program that amounts to the executive branch saying, trust us.
But when the president can kill whoever he wants, then he's not a president anymore, he's a king.
His citizenship should no more serve as a shield than a sniper shooting down on an innocent crowd should be protected from a SWAT team.
And these guys probably are bad dudes, and that's how it's used right now. But if you study history and you know that you allow this kind of abuse of power by the federal government and undermine the rule of law, I fear what happens to us down the road. Germany, China, you can only dream of what the United States just did. Because this just opens the floodgates for oppression and tyranny.
The United States just 50, 60 years ago was the example of the world for freedom. Now you notice our criminal government never criticizes Russia or China anymore because they can't. And China passed its own NDAA and said, hey, we can arrest and kill people secretly too. Look, the Americans do it.
It's just codifying into law that the United States Constitution and Bill of Rights are null and void.
We don't care what your guys' intentions are. We know what this can be used for
later on, because there's a reason you don't chip away at liberties, because at some point you end up with a tyranny.
The minute you stop fighting for that freedom, it's going to diminish and ultimately disappear. And once it's gone, we're not going to get it back.
I got 3 kids. I want them to grow up with freedom. Don't you want your kids to have freedom? They're not going to have it.
What I don't understand is how come more people aren't awake to it when it's so blatantly obvious to so many of us. Is the conditioning really that pervasive?
People who go along with the system saying like, I will support the system, I will do it, I'm not going to question it. Those are very naive people.
God has ordained the police officers in a sense to restrain evil. We're to submit.
As long as we submit to state authority, continue to yield our liberties, and modify our behavior to fit the mold of federal approval, this unlucky person being dragged away will not be us. And as long as at least we believe our freedoms are not at stake, we'll be allowed to return to the comfortable complacency of our padded, regimented lives.
You're not safe. Just because you're working for the system, you feel like you're protected. You're not protected. We don't have that anymore in the American public. Couldn't care less. It's astounding.
I don't care. I don't think the American citizens. I understand. He was a 16-year-old teenager from Colorado. I understand. You don't care? No. I support it completely. You support it completely? So indefinite detention for Americans and assassination of Americans, absolutely, because Obama said it. Absolutely. All right. Happy 4th of July.
Why should people give a shit? This is our country. This is our home. And we have rights given to us by the Constitution.
Without the Constitution, the United States is just another piece of property.
That's my vote. Preserve, protect, and defend. Preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the United States. So help you God, so help me God.
I think it is an imperfect document, and I think it is a document that reflects some deep flaws in American culture. The Constitution reflected an enormous blind spot in this culture that carries on until this day, and that the framers had that same blind spot. What's frustrated people is that I have not been able to force Congress to implement every aspect of what I said in 2008. Our founders designed a system that makes it more difficult to bring about change than I would like.
Our ancestors tried to protect us against this omnipotent type of power. That was the whole idea.
And I really think it's more about the nature of government to always be as big of a cancer as the host will tolerate. The limits of tyranny will be prescribed by the tolerance of the oppressed.
I know some people want me to bypass Congress and change the laws on my own. Believe me, the idea of doing things on my own is very tempting.
So what happens is we see these small erosions of our rights, and we get to the point where people say, well, can't you just live with that? If you say, no, I can't live with that, well, then people go, well, what kind of a nut job are you? Well, you can't live with that.
Tyranny is the mainstream drug of choice for everybody, and even we can be tyrannous in liberty. But you got to have liberty. Well, maybe they like being in prison.
And that's where we see the shift, the change happen. Over time, they say, well, they don't even have that right in the first place. Was that even necessary?
What we were discussing earlier, we have the headline, fast and furious, and the drug trade, orange trade, trafficking, and nobody cares who gives a shit.
Why doesn't that matter?
Doesn't matter to me. I'm sure they'd have a good reason if they did.
Is it because of Obama, or is it because he's a Democrat, or just because you trust the government that much?
Oh, all three.
All three. So you trust the government and you would let them kill you because they know what's best. Say that one more time?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, I don't even know what else to say at this point. Have a great day. Oh my God.
But those sort of it's coming. And technically, it's already here.
To urge you, today's viper surgeons did not come from any particular threat. One TSA official says intelligence tells them they should be focusing on the highways as well as the airports.
They also warned that terrorists were going to be striking at home, that terrorists now are going to be domestic.
The menace of terrorism has mutated. Homegrown terrorism is one of my biggest concerns. It's happening in our own backyard.
They're trying to indoctrinate us into a telltale society where we all think each other are suspects.
They're recruiting truck drivers into the First Observer Highway Security Program to say something if they see something.
Be responsible citizens, report that.
Bottom line is this: if you see something suspicious, say something about it. Everybody should be aware of what's going on the road.
Close to 1 million Americans signed up on this list saying that they will report their neighbors to the government.
You have financial rewards if you spy on your neighbor. In some cases, you're required to. We can reference the story of the city Vietnam. In one night, Viet Cong rolled in, rounded up 4,000 Vietnamese men, and had them all executed by the next morning. The CIA just could not figure out how they did it. Well, the answer is they have a system of informers. And what are we being taught to do?
If you see something.
This here is a good example of what I tried to play yesterday, you know, which I'm going to put it up again today.
People laugh at sheep because they follow the one in front and they follow the shepherd. Humans have out sheep the sheep. We dispense with a freaking sheepdog. We keep each other in line. We don't need a sheepdog.
Hey people, check this out. This is for today's, but hey. Oh, and thank you, by the way.
People laugh at sheep because they follow the one in front and they follow the shepherd. Humans have out sheep the sheep. We dispense with a freaking sheepdog. We keep each other in line. We don't need a sheepdog.
So fucking true. So fucking true. Oh, where did it go? Hang on a minute, guys. Hang on a minute. Hang on a minute. It just killed out. Hang on. It shouldn't have killed out. It was a part of YouTube. Well, it killed out. I lost it, and I'm not going to go back and look for it. So, you're back to me. It was a YouTube page, but it literally brought it fucking down just because I opened up a video. But yeah, I mean, that, for anybody that wants to know, that's the interviews and whatever, the people that were involved in, I guess, making of the grey state. If you can get a hold of that movie, by all means do so. Have a look. I'm still trying to get or find a free copy of that movie so I can actually watch it. It was pretty sad that a whole family had to die because of it. But sadly, that's the world we live in. That's where we are at the moment, you know. That's where we are at the moment. And nobody said it better than what David Icke said. We don't need the police. We don't need a shepherd. We don't even need a fucking sheepdog. Because you're always going to find somebody. And it doesn't even necessarily, and that's the sad fucking part, is it doesn't even necessarily have to be that what you're showing is graphic, that what you're showing is bullshit, that what you're showing is whatever. It simply comes down to they don't have to like you. You know? And we police each other. Well, I won't say we, because I don't do that to people. I don't do that to people. If I don't like their content, I just walk away. But it's not just about YouTube, it's everything. It's everything. I mean, I went on the hunt last night and I was looking at BitChute and I thought maybe it's time for a change. Maybe it's time to leave YouTube and go to BitChute. And I actually followed somebody's link over there because they were moving their stuff over to BitChute. And oh my God. I don't think so, Gut. I think most of it was actually made because if you go into Google, which is where I went, and I was trying to find, I found where the movie was, but you have to, I think it was not just log in, but register, and I don't know what the fuck else. And I'm sure there's a free copy of it somewhere out there. And I know that whoever was left behind with whatever was made, I know that they would have put it out because what we've seen here today isn't the same footage that I saw on the movie. So I don't think it was fully completed. Don't quote me on that, but the movie definitely is out. So how much of it was actually finished to the end or not, I'm not sure. But I would like to see it. So if anybody finds an actual link to that, where it's free and you don't have to register to websites that you've never heard of and whatever, that'd be great if somebody can drop it underneath one of my videos. But yeah, I ended up following somebody over to BitChute, and I thought maybe it's time for a change. What I saw, oh, society never ceases to fucking amaze me. You know, you kind of think that you get used to it, you know, but you just don't, you know. I mean, I see people on here and I see the videos that they're doing and you see the comments that are underneath and all that kind of stuff. But then when you go over to BitChute, because there's apparently, well, not apparently, but there is more freedom there, as in to post whatever you want. When you see the pictures, when you see the comments that are left underneath some of these videos, you realize how much fucking hatred, and I mean pure fucking hatred, there is amongst people. And that is just so fucking sad. You know, I thought people were actually growing a brain, but it's not, you know. Depends on what media platform, your social media platform you're on as to how much you see. And I think this is why this is what they try to censor, you know, so that people think we're all just living in some rosy fucking rose garden place, you know what I mean? And they show you little bits of stuff here and there and whatever, but when you get into places where people can post what they want, you actually see what these people are all about. You know what I mean? You actually start seeing who these people really fucking are. Because to me, for somebody to go and post something underneath one of my videos, if they well, thank God here they can't post pictures because I'd have to fucking delete all my comments all over again. But if somebody posted something underneath one of my videos that I thought was nasty, rather than worrying about the clicks and views, that person would be fucking gone. Because you can put a video out there, but if you leave people's nasty comments there and you support that, because obviously you must do if you leave them there, you know, if you support that, that is just, it's, and I don't mean just somebody having an opinion about somebody not liking somebody. I mean just fucking cruel, nasty shit. And we think we've progressed. We haven't. We haven't. Humanity has gone backwards. Technology is the only thing that has moved forwards. I mean, I was talking to my sister the other day and she was saying that she was watching this series about, I don't even know if it was a series. It might have been a movie. It could have been a series. I'm not sure. But she was saying how she was watching about how many people get done for murder and are put in jails, but they're actually innocent and yada yada yada. And then she was watching this other one about how people were targeted with cameras. They were surveilled first and then targeted with cameras in their own home. And those same people didn't realize that the person who had put cameras in every fucking room of their property was actually live streaming it on social media. If you don't know about that movie, it's called Keep Watching, right? And it's so fucking easily done today. And I says to her, I said, well, if you go on the dark web, I said, you can see stuff on there that you wished you'd never gone into that fucking place. Because I watched it through somebody else's computer once. And the things that I saw, and this is the sad part, right, is that we've seen so many horror movies that you detach, you become accustomed to it, not accustomed to it, but you can detach by saying it's a movie, it's a movie, it's a movie, right? But then you realize that that is not a movie, that is actually happening somewhere, and that it's being live streamed, and you're still looking at it, and it's so fucking hard to detach, not to break the detachment and to actually feel something. Do you know what I mean? Because of all the pre-programming and the violent movie, not just the violent movies, but the horror movies and whatever. You know what I mean? You see a Chainsaw Massacre, this, that, and the other, whatever, and you watch people fucking, I don't know, hack people to bits, and you've just put it down to a fucking movie. But how would you know if what you're watching is real or not real? Very hard to tell. Very hard to tell. And because we've, like I said, been programmed into it's a movie, it's nothing but a movie, you detach yourself. You detach yourself from what is actually going on. But yeah, depending on what happens tomorrow, I might come back on again and play a couple of other things that I found. It's actually called The Cleaner, or The Cleaners. Sorry, The Cleaners. The things that these people, which we don't see, right? We don't see. And personally, I really think that this should be put out there. I don't think that shit should be suppressed, right? Because if shit is suppressed, you don't know who you're talking to. You don't know what you're watching, okay? Or what the truth is behind it, I should say. And it shows, I mean, I'm not going to go all the way through it, but it shows the things that people have to do in life. One, to make a living, okay, where any job is better than no job. But the mental torment that they have to go through, and what they have to watch just to bring the human sheeple stuff that may not upset them, stuff that I don't know, stuff that would probably bring most people to pick up a fucking weapon, to pick up fucking rocket launchers to pick up whatever they can and just literally go on a fucking rampage. To the point where some literally kill themselves because of the work that they do. Because of the effect that it ends up having on them, watching this day in and day out and day in and day out. And while I was watching it, I actually stopped and thought, I mean, just with the things that I'm seeing a lot of the times, and you guys have heard me say it, I've said, you know, somebody just push the fucking button, let's end this shit, okay? Let's end it. Whoever survives, kudos to you. Start back at making your own fucking clay plates and clay fucking spoons and whatever, because we deserve nothing more for what we've done to one another everywhere. But after watching it, I was trying to put myself into their shoes, and to have to watch that day in, day out, day in, day out. By now, I don't think I would have killed myself. I think I would have been one of those that would have gone out there and done some huge motherfucking bitch ass damage. Because there was one particular picture that I saw and I stopped it because I couldn't believe what I was looking at. So I rewound it and watched it again. And that was only one picture. That was just one picture. Like one guy says, if he was to be judged on how many pictures or videos he approved in a day, he should be in the Guinness Book of Records, because they go through something like 25,000 pictures a day, whether to approve them or not to approve them. So, but I do want to play that for people, because there are people out there that do that, not because they want to do that, but because some look at the fact that any job is better than no job. And most of us know that just because you've done your schooling and you've got a piece of paper to say that you're educated in a certain topic, it doesn't mean shit anymore. You know, it doesn't mean shit anymore. I know one who studied mechanical engineering, got a degree in mechanical engineering, and he was delivering coke. You know, and Snoopy, I'm gonna cut your friggin' nuts off. Hang on 1 minute, let me kill the dog. Dude, get away from there. Come on. No. Sorry, didn't want to mute you. I'm back. No, don't give me those eyes. No, that was naughty. Anyway, but yeah, it's sad. It's sad that society has been put, that certain people have been put in positions where, just to survive, so that they don't have to eat from rubbish tips, that they're put in a position where they take these jobs on and they sign a contract, you know? This is the part that fucking gets them, is that they sign a contract and they can't get out of it. And even if they ask, you know, to be moved or something or other, or they say that they can't do it anymore. They're ignored. You signed a contract, therefore you have to continue. You have to continue looking at the savagery, the fucking, yeah, I can't even call humanity animals, because animals don't do to one another what humans do to one another. Yeah, it was, I for the first time, I actually watched that, because, I mean, to me, this YouTube thing of censoring and whatever, this is nothing. This is nothing, and it's pretty sad that they would have to go to this level to actually delete videos or whatever. This is nothing. What I'm putting up is nothing in compared to what these people are forced to watch, and then make a choice. Should they let it through or should they delete it? Okay? My stuff is nothing. And that's why it's sad that YouTube is doing what they're doing here. You know what I mean? Because, hey, all I'm doing is putting up something that somebody else has already put up. But yeah, I couldn't believe it. And I think people actually need to see that kind of stuff. They need to see the truth. Because if they look at the real truth, and that's like BitChute, you know, I mean, when I saw that, and it was purely by chance that I scrolled down under the video, that made me go, what the fuck? Like, come on. But then it hit me, is that, yeah, where you've got total and absolute full-on truth allowed, it's not pretty. It really turns mega motherfucking sadistic, fucking inhumane, whatever word you want to put on it that describes fucking nasty, that describes sick people, that describes racism, that describe, like I said, humanity's gone backwards. In short, humanity has gone backwards, technology has gone forwards. And to put that kind of technology into a society that is heading backwards, I think is extremely motherfucking dangerous. Because there is so many, when you let them out, when you allow them to come out, there is so many fucking hateful people that walk this earth. And the sadder thing is that they actually make a conscious choice to be that way. And here's silly little me trying to promote for people to have morals and ethics and spread the love, and yeah. Oh, you know, we all live in our little fantasy bubble, and you kind of hope that somewhere, and I know he will, the creator will kick in. He will kick in, not to save anybody, but I'm hoping that he just pushes the button. I'm hoping that he puts it into somebody's head to just push the fucking button and be done with it. I seriously get it now. You know what I mean? I seriously get it. I really do. And I didn't know this, but yeah, I'm gonna keep on putting that vibe out. You know, sure, have morals, have ethics, and have all the rest of it, but you know, just push the button. That's all I've got to say, is just keep on. I'm gonna keep on fucking hoping that somebody just pushes the button and be done with it. Be done with it. Because everything that goes on in society. Somebody knows about, somebody's cashing in on. It's nasty. It's nasty. Humanity is nasty. Humanity is the virus on this earth. There is no other virus. There is no COVID-19. There is no fucking anything else. The virus is humanity. God, I get that. I get that. But when you watch somebody slit somebody's throat, I gotta say, I'm not God. He can forgive. I'm only but human, you know. I'm just fucking on my whatever my journey is here. But can I forgive as easily as the Creator does? Many things, no. Do I dare go back to BitChute and watch more? Do I dare go other places? I really don't want to be doing that because I can see now how that would make somebody fucking turn, you know, just to see what really goes on in society. And then you look at the things that people complain about on the chunk of dirt that they stand on, and how, not that it doesn't mean anything, not that it's not wrong, but in comparison to what is happening to people everywhere on this earth that you never hear about or never get to see, is mind-blowing. It's fucking mind-blowing. But yeah, what can you do? What can you do? You know? And I think that's why they actually took, the government took guns away from people because people would turn on them. That's an obvious thing, okay? That's an obvious thing, all right? But it's not only because of that. Like I said, you know, just to see for yourself. Go to follow people over to BitChute or to other platforms and whatever, and see what kind of stuff they put up, or the stuff that they allow to be put up in the comment section. And even that is nothing compared to what these people apparently have to watch. And they're the ones that decide delete or ignore. You know, the amount of videos and pictures that they go through. Like I said, I had to stop one of them because I couldn't believe it. I thought, no, I didn't just see that. So I actually stopped it, rewound it a little bit, and then watched it again. And I thought, you've got to be fucking kidding me. And that the useless eaters around that are watching that nobody does anything, that we just go through life allowing that to happen on a daily basis. We're all sick as fuck. How can we not be called a virus? I think we're a virus of the worst motherfucking kind. And then what makes it worse is those same people that do that Go to church. Like, what the fuck do you sit there and ask for? I just slit somebody's throat today. I'm here in church asking for forgiveness. Are you fucking serious? I just blew somebody's brains out today, but I'm here in church to ask forgiveness. How the fuck does that work? Because I'm sorry. If I'm stupid, hey, I'm stupid. But how the fuck does that shit fucking work in anybody's mind? That you make a conscious choice to do some nasty, fucked up shit. But then you go to church and ask for forgiveness. And that's where I say, I'm not God. Maybe God can forgive that. To me, no. 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 That's why I'm a great believer in karma, you know. A great believer in karma. But sadly, a lot of the times, she doesn't show up fast enough. You know what I mean? She doesn't show up fast enough. I mean, if she's recruiting, I'll help her out. I'll volunteer. I'll volunteer. Lord knows, she's kicked my ass many fucking times. But hey, she needs to show up a shitload fucking quicker. And if she can't do that, then like I says, maybe God just needs to literally convince somebody somewhere that has the power to push a button, just to fucking push the button. Just one. That'll get everything else going. Just one button. Just one button. I've been saying for ages, humanity has turned on itself. It has done. It has done for ages. But like I says, we just don't get to see it. The only thing that we see is what's on the TV, you know, what's put in front of us. People don't stop to realize how much content is actually hidden from them. How much content is hidden from them. That if they saw what their own people were doing to other humans, would turn their stomach. Would turn their fucking stomach, and if it didn't, then they're just as fucking sick. I said once ages ago, people seriously need to ask and constantly ask their creator for forgiveness, for not standing up to any of it, for allowing it to happen, for allowing it to continue, for allowing it to get worse day by day, year by year. There isn't a pure fucking soul on this earth apart from the child that is born. But as far as all the adults, yeah, no. No. And I get it, you know, because of all the bullshit and the pre-programming and the indoctrination and the yada yada. But at some point, you've got to say, I can see clearly now. You know, I can see clearly now. I can see what is being hidden. I can see what's going on. I can see the cruelty that not even an animal does to its own or to another animal, let alone its fucking own. And people don't want to know, you know. People just want to continue living in that fantasy bubble. Well, it's not happening in my yard. I don't have to give a fuck. I'll worry about it when it gets here. That's why I stay off. I try and stay away from the computer as much as I can, because when I see this kind of shit, it just makes me dislike humanity more and more. And I like the fact that I spend most of my time on my own, because when I go out and I look at society and I look at people, and they just choose, they make a selfish, a conscious choice to not want to know. It's not about, oh, I want the truth, but then I'm going to measure how much of it I want. You either want it or you don't. You either want it or you don't. It's never easy to see it. It's never easy to watch. I mean, I remember when Blind Justice was being attacked. You know, the amount of people that turn around and says, oh, I can't watch it. Oh my God. Like, not belittling what happened to him in any way, shape or form, but that is nothing as to what happens to people on a daily basis on this earth. People that you will never hear of, people that you will never see, that you will never meet, whose name you will never know. People that just go fucking missing. The abuse, the torture, the pain that they go through before they die. People need to see that. I think there should be a platform where it's just literally let out. Literally let the fuck out. And then, maybe then, people will open their eyes and go, oh my God, what species am I a part of? That people would pay in the thousands, to sit somewhere and watch somebody's throat get slit. But humanity doesn't want to know that. It doesn't want to know how sick it fucking is, really. Because like I said, if that was all let out on the internet, people would literally leave the internet of their own accord. YouTube would not have to delete people's videos or whatever. People would literally leave the internet of their own fucking accord. Oh, God, I don't know. Like I said, you know, if all of this was unleashed on the internet, you can, I mean, we know each other, we know that we know that we wouldn't, not that we wouldn't be able to, because one can never say that, because you don't know what situation you're ever going to be put in, obviously, to defend yourself. You're going to do whatever you can to defend yourself in a nasty situation. And I try, like I said, I try and promote the morals and the ethics and the, but people don't want to listen. They don't want to hear that what they're supporting by not doing anything is just so evil and so on another fucking level. People don't want to know that. You know, people just say, oh, you know, I pray. I pray. And that's all good and well, but the times that we're living in, the times that we have been living in, and where humanity is heading, it's not enough anymore. Like my ma used to say when she would, out of the Bible that she read, man, help yourself and I will help you. I don't think he meant take care of your own ass first. I think he meant more as a collective that we need to take care of each other. But sadly, there aren't too many of those humans on this earth that would literally take care of each other and not do horrifically nasty motherfucking shit. And see, it doesn't even stop there. When I say that we are the virus, you can even take that. Forget about what we do to each other or what we're capable of doing to one another. Take that even to the animal kingdom. And I've said this before, there was a video years ago, and yeah, stupid fucking curious ass me spots this fucking thumbnail on a video, and I thought, oh, I'm going to go watch that. Do you know, to this day, that video is stuck in my head, to this day. That humanity, that human beings would make a conscious choice that any fucking educated, prick-ass fucking doctor, scientist, whatever you want to call them, that they would take an animal and peel the skin off its fucking head, like literally clip it back, so that they could test a shampoo or a soap or makeup that humans want to use. It's just nasty. It's nasty all around. Nasty is not even the word. If I could find something that was a word more appropriate, I would use it. But I'll go with nasty. Nasty is just too nice. Nasty is almost a nice word when you come to not comparing but describing humanity. And at the end of the day, if this bothers you, what I'm saying, then that's not my issue, because I'm never talking directly to any single person. This is just my thoughts out loud. Because we need to ask, what do we do to stop any of this? What have we ever done to stop any of this? We can't keep saying and can't keep going through life saying, I didn't know, I don't know. Because at some point you do. At some fucking point you do. And as I've said before, it makes me sad that my future, my children's future, is dependent on that kind of humanity. This isn't gonna get better, people. It won't. Because if we can put it this way, the shitty people that deny, the people that just choose ignorance over everything else, the people that don't want to think outside the box, all of those people outweigh the ones that see what's going on. They outweigh. So our future is going to be whatever those sheeple that refuse to acknowledge, that refuse to wake up for whatever reason. Our future is dependent on them, and that is motherfucking bitch-ass scary. Because that's just going back, it's like going back to the fucking witch hunt days. Somebody doesn't like you, they'll point the finger and the rest of the crowd will just fuck you over. They'll just fuck you over. No questions asked. They're not going to ask whether you're innocent, whether you're guilty, whether you even did it, did you think it? You're not going to ask any of that. They're just going to fuck you over. And that's not the police. That's not the government. That's not the elites. That's your fellow man. That's your fellow man. Your fellow man. Hey, Danny. Hang on a minute. I've got to find a plug here. This stupid ass shit's going to die. I need it going. Otherwise, it's going to keep whistling at me. Whistling Dixie. Or whatever it does. Guts to plug this shit in. But yeah. But that's the part that makes me sad, folks. Is that those sheep will outweigh the rest of us. Outweigh the rest of us. We're going to be left fighting a fight that we can't win. Danny, the topic is just me having a goddamn bitch about everything. Oh, I look at too much shit and it gets me fucking angry and it just gets me, oy. You know, it gets me into one of those states. But what can you do? What can you do? I mean, truth is censored. I thought that, you know, with YouTube and whatever, and sure, you can't show this and you can't show that. But when you look at the bigger stuff, what is on YouTube being censored is petty shit. It's petty shit, really. You know, it's petty crap. What we have to look at, our danger is the person standing fucking next to you, and I'm against divide and I'm against fucking hate. But I tell you what, in those words of David Icke, it's so true. And that's the fucking sad part. It's so true. I've seen it in my own life. You know, again, nothing horrific, but somebody simply not wanting to see you move forward, somebody simply not wanting to see you get ahead, somebody simply not wanting you to whatever. That's all it takes. It's not that you went and knocked off their family. It's not that when you know that you did this or you did it. No. Like David says, the sheeple will police and are policing themselves. We don't even need the sheepdog. So even if we get rid of the police per se, who then decides if what you're doing is right or wrong? It still comes back to somebody. It still comes back to the sheeple. You know, the sheeple will get together and like I said, it's no different to back in the witch hunt days. You know? I like the way that you put that gun. Dismiss the fact that if I had a flamethrower and a friggin' rocket launcher and Lord knows what, hey, if I was next to the button, I'd push it. But people need to see the truth. I personally think, regardless of the nastiness, the inhumane, the cruel, the whatever word, people need to see what other people put up. Because I'm telling you now, if they did, they would literally walk away from the internet. They would walk away from the internet. Majority would walk away from the internet. All of those people who don't want to open their eyes up, all of those people that ignore, suppress what they know to be true, but they choose to ignore all of it because somebody else might hate them for it. They would walk away from the internet. Humanity, society, truth. It is not pretty. Oh God, I just read what you wrote. Hey, listen, if I get locked up for that, just post bail for me, will you? Oh, that's too funny. Oh I'm getting visuals now. It's never good to let me think about it because then I start getting visuals. There you go. Jesse wants the other suitcase. Oh, far out. You know who I pity? Oh, listen, you don't have to take the rap, mate. Just bring me some ciggies and some coffee and come have a chat with me on the odd occasion. I'm good. I feel sorry for the kids. I really do. I feel sorry for the kids. And this is what got me many, many moons ago with my own people, if you can put it that way, right? If we're going to look at country to country and whatever. I feel sorry for the children that are getting indoctrinated by their parents, by their own families, getting indoctrinated with hate, you know, with hate, with racism, with whatever you want to call it, whatever the fuck you want to call it. I feel sorry for the kids. I really do. Feel sorry for the kids. And it might be wrong, and people might think that I'm fucked up and whatever, but I always used to say to my kids, this is not a society that you want to bring children into. It's not. It's getting worse by the day. There is nothing improving. Suitcase nuclear device. Oh, Jesse, look, we need to investigate that. But yeah, I do. I genuinely feel sorry for the children. They don't stand a fucking chance. And even with them, even if they've got parents that are telling them that shit is fucked up and you know, showing them stuff and explaining stuff to them, they're still outweighed. They're still outweighed by the ones that don't, you know, by the ones that don't. But yeah. Venture out there a bit, folks. You know, if you don't normally venture away from YouTube, go have a look. Go to social media sites that actually allow more truth out there, that allow more. Go and have a look as to what kind of society you're really living in. Be prepared. You might see shit that'll really fuck you up. But, you know, like I say, truth don't come with sparkles and sprinkles and fairy lights and yada yada yada. You look at it raw and it is fucking painful. It is fucking painful. You look at one or two pictures and you can still detach, you know, like I said, because we're brought up on that. You know, you watch it in movies and that's why they do it to you, so that you disassociate, you know. It's just a movie, it's just a movie, it's just a picture, it's just a picture. But stop and look at it for a little while and put yourself into that position. What's that? Information known as police detectives wrote a report on Mrs. Brown. Information: Mr. Brown beat his wife. She came in to tell on her husband for saying Hitler is bad. Mrs. Brown was mentioned. He responded, no, she has the lover. It's a false claim as she wants me gone. Mrs. Brown knew that the domestic violence wasn't cared for, so she used the anti-government and the Nazi against her husband. And then, Danny, type faster. Type faster. Come on. Yeah. I mean, I've been waiting this whole time. I mean, you guys have heard the dog here and whatever. I've been waiting this whole time for one of the neighbours to ring up and bitch about the dog barking. But they know better. They know if they come at me, I'm going to come back at them. I'll fucking go back at them if I have to. And some people don't like that. But to me, you want to come after me for something that is normal, something that is natural, something that is whatever. If I have to make myself as low as the snake's asshole to bring you down, I will. But yeah, nobody's complained. My daughter was even worried about it. She said to me, she goes, don't let him bark, yada, yada. He is licensed, registered, all the rest of it. She says, but don't let him bark. And I said to her, I says, what the fuck is wrong with you? I said, that's what a dog does. What, you get a dog just so that you can feed it? You get a dog for what? To me, I get a dog because I want protection, because I want that dog to tell me there is somebody outside my home that shouldn't be. It's a dog's job, not even a job, to bark, because they just do. They just do. It's what a dog does. It's like a cat meowing. It's like trying to tell a cat, don't meow, But people think they're free. You're free. We're not free. We're not free. That's why I used to like living in the farming community. Because your next neighbour is like fucking kilometres away. You can crank up your stereo, the dogs can fucking bark their tits off, the cats can meow, the chooks can go fucking bananas, the pigs can fucking do whatever they want. Nobody to fucking hear it, Nobody to hear it. You come into suburbia and oh good God. The birds aren't allowed to sit in the trees anymore, can't have trees. Birds can't shit on the paving, they can't shit anywhere. Let's teach the birds now to use the fucking toilet. And that's not even funny because many people teach their fucking cats to use a goddamn fucking toilet. Even animals can't be animals anymore because of humans. We've literally shat on everything. Shat on, abused, misused, and all those other words that come into play. We've done it all. We've literally pissed on all of it. Everything that the Creator ever gave us, we've pissed on all of it. It gets to a point where it's hard to stay up. You know what I mean? It's a constant effort to stay up. It's a constant effort to try and see good. in something, in somebody. It's a constant fucking effort. Because we see more of the bad. And it's not even that somebody's doctored a picture or this, that, and the other. It's just simple. It's shit, like I says. Just shit. It's all shit. Where was I? When Archie concluded it was bullshit, handed it normal police. Point is family, turn on family, and use the government of the day to do it. Danny, absolutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. Abso-fucking-lutely. Absolutely. You know, my folks used to say that just talking about humanity or whatever, they used to say that somebody can bring you to the hole, right? And they will push you in, but your family might bring you to the hole, but they won't push you in. That has changed. That is long gone. That has long fucking gone. Because when you look at the elder finance abuse, when you look at the elder abuse in any given country, it's just, it's sad. Russia's former national security advisor claimed more than 100 suitcase-sized nuclear weapons had disappeared. Hey, listen, if anybody's got one of them out there and you want to unload, just get in touch with me. I'll give you my address. I'll definitely give you my address. Don't even have to PayPal me. Hello, Colette. You got fired and the Russians said they never existed in the first place. 100, you say? Well, you know, I think people probably are hanging on to those things for when shit really turns feral. Not that we're not already feral, but when shit turns really feral, in the sense of what's that movie? When they have to lock up, there's a certain day or something or other when they go around and purge. That's it, fucking purge. I think they're hanging on to those suitcases for when that comes around. But if people think that that's not going to happen, it will. It will. You're going to have neighbour knocking off neighbour for the food that they've got just because one was too lazy to fucking take note of shit and to do something about the coming situation where the other one did. You're going to see neighbour knocking off neighbour. You're going to see family knocking off family. I'm going to make sure I got a lot of popcorn and a folder chair. If it's summer when this goes down, I'd like a brolly as well. You know? Sit back and watch the shit show. It's been a shit show for a very fucking long time. Don't have to go to the theatre anymore. Or to the cinema. Don't waste your money. Just go to a shopping centre. Go sit in the middle of the city, your main city. Get yourself some popcorn and a folded chair and a brolly. Maybe a glass of wine. Whatever takes your fancy. Just sit there and watch the population. Watch humanity. It's free. You know, it's free. And if you get your hands on, or not get your hands on, but if you get to see some of the real fucking truth in its raw form, that would be the best horror movie that you've ever seen without having to pay a motherfucking cent. But if you haven't seen that movie, it's a good movie to watch, simply just to make you aware of what can happen. It's called Keep Watching. That's the name of the movie, Keep Watching. I'm not saying that for you to keep watching my live stream. I'm saying that is the name of the movie, Keep Watching. All right? It's an older movie, I think. But watch it and see what can actually happen. And I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if that kind of shit, okay, isn't happening. With the stuff that I've seen, that movie would what that movie portrays is kind of mild in comparison. I've spoken to the people who made these bombs, so I know that they exist. Well, here's hoping they use them wisely, whoever's got their hands on them. That's all I have to say. And the thing is, nowadays too, you don't even fucking know. You wouldn't know if it's Joe down the road that stuck the suitcase somewhere, or your own government. You wouldn't know. Oh, listen, when Trump turned around and said he was building a wall, I pissed myself laughing. And I thought, how can people not see that this is not to keep people out, this is to keep people in? Because they know that people are going to try and run. They don't want them to run. It's no different to when a country gets invaded. What do people do? They try and cross the border. They look for peace. They don't want to die, you know? How are people going to know who is actually doing it? I mean, if it happened on a particular chunk of dirt tomorrow and the media pushes out, for example, Australia's doing that, how the fuck would you know? Majority of people would just go by what they're being told, you know? Sheeple. Virus in a petri dish. And if we're going to go back to the Bible where it says about the firmament, and if you're a flat earther and you think you're under a dome, what does that show you? The virus in a petri dish. And you have the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. And at the moment, the bad bacteria outweigh the good bacteria. I'm not sure what I want to call that particular disease. Insanity, maybe? I don't know. I think that's too mild. It's too mild. But yeah. On that note, people, I am going to love yous and leave yous because I need to go and get out of my PJs because I'm off today to celebrate some happy times with my kid. And I will catch you guys either later on DLive, and if you don't see me on, just know that OBS is either fucking not working, or I can't get it through for some odd reason. I don't want to be disheartened at the fact that my live streams are a waste of time and that there's some virus out there that keeps flagging my shit, you know. But yeah, I'm gonna go spend some happy times with her, and I will try and come back again, like I says, tomorrow. Again, it depends on StreamYards, because I'm not sure. I haven't even gotten any email from them as to when my clock runs out, as in my live stream shit. So if you don't see me back live, you know that it's one of those two things. If it's on DLive, it's because the speed factor and OBS, and if it's on YouTube, you don't see me live, then obviously I've received a thingy from StreamYard saying your number is up, you know, your time has expired. But go out there and find some raw truth, people. Get angry. Get angry. Look for people that, you know, like David Icke says, look for people that are on your wavelength. We're not going to agree on everything. That's obvious. But at least make the effort to find out what's going on around you. As in the truth, as in by your own research. And my best thing that I can advise people is, like I says before, go to different social media platforms and just check out the videos that are being put up, check out the comments and the pictures that are being put underneath those videos, and you will see that humanity is not what you think it really is. That life around you is not what you really think it is. But anyway, on the upside, people, laters everybody, and thank you kindly for hanging with me. As always, you know, the ones that stuck it out, the ones that popped in and popped out, I will hopefully catch everybody tomorrow. And if you don't see this video go up on YouTube, you know that somebody's brought it down again. But we will persist. Later, people.